Good evening. Welcome back. How you guys doing? Welcome back to that crazy live stream. For those who are joining for the first time, this may be the opposite of what you're expecting. This is sometimes a funny place, mostly not so funny, intentionally so. This is a place where we're just sharing stories. We're talking about difficult experiences. Life is about difficult experiences. That's what defines our lives. It's rarely the good times in life that define what life is about. It's often what we go through. And there have been many times in my own life where I've wanted a place like this where I've just wished at times in my life there could be a place that was completely anonymous, where things could be shared just without any sense of holding back. And so I've created this place we're calling Anonymous Live, where anyone can call in internationally. We've got a toll-free number, international toll-free. So anyone in the world can call in to this number we're going to flash up in the screen in a second. And just talk about difficult stuff. This is not a place to debate ideas or political theories or anything like that. This is a place to talk about things that make us human and just help us all feel a little bit closer. You know, I believe we're in a time where people are really divided and, ideas can divide people for some good reasons at times. But mostly, I believe that people just need a place to come together. And so I've been joking. This kind of place is the opposite of that old show Cheers, which I'm dating myself by referencing. But that old show Cheers, which if any of you are as old as I am to remember, the theme song said, "Sometimes you want to go where everyone knows your name," and this is the opposite, where no one knows your name, especially if you have a weird ass screen name like half of these people in the chat do. So this is not a place to come expecting TikTok videos. This is if anything, I would call it slow, possibly boring. If you're expecting the wrong thing, I don't think it's boring. I think it's inspiring. But a lot of people, if you're expecting a TikTok video, like a really fast-paced, like this is not that. This is the opposite of that. So we've had a little bit of whiplash from some people who've entered in the middle of a intense conversation with a caller, and they've been like, "What have I stepped into?" So just a little bit of a preamble on what to expect here tonight. We're going to go for about 3 hours. We're doing these 3 days a week right now. We're doing them on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Central. We started at 10 p.m. Central, and now we're doing 9. And basically the only funny part of the show is when people get toasted. And it's not always funny, because there have been some toasts that are kind of like accidental. Like sometimes there have been times where I've hung up on the wrong person, and people have, called back and gotten more out. And we try to go fast and just quickly try to identify a caller that really needs to talk. And there have been some trolls, so that's part of the reason for the need for toasting people, for hanging up on them. But just so you know, that is pretty much the only laughable part of the show. There's some other laughable moments, but that's not what this is about. This is something much deeper. This is a thing that this is a place where you can just kind of come and feel normal. It's inspiring. Like, a lot of these stories are very not the same. People go through different things, but the themes of these stories are often similar. And so that I don't know. It's been inspiring for me. Maybe I'm simple-minded, but it's hard to believe that when so many people in the chat are echoing that sentiment. So I believe in what we're doing. This is a very strange place. It's not the end of my comedy, but most of you guys have kind of picked up on this pattern now, where there's like some comedy stuff coming out on this channel, and then every now and then there's like, some like more, I don't want to call it serious stuff, but it's just stuff that's like thoughtful. We're thinking here. So don't stay unless you want to do some thinking and some listening. That's what we're doing. So, without further ado, we are going to open up these phone lines. We've got this 1-800 number here. Again, it's toll-free internationally, so you can call free from anywhere, mostly anywhere. It's toll-free to over 100 countries, so pretty much anywhere that can communicate with my white ass can call in. The only real limitation is my ability to speak English exclusively. That's the only inhibitor here. So, I don't know, maybe if this turns into something, I'll learn a couple languages. Who knows what this will turn into. We're just doing this because it's been a good thing. So, yeah. I'm going to prep these phone lines. Phone number is on the screen. Please prepare a brief intro to your story when you call in. And other than that, just that's pretty much it. Just prepare something short to dive into a conversation. And with that, we're going to take the first caller. Here we go. Hi, thanks for calling. Toast. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hey, I cannot believe I got through.
What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I mean, I just...
Toast. Don't call and say you don't know what you want to talk about. Hi, thanks for calling. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, what do you want to talk about?
Oh, is that me?
It's on you. What's up?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hello, you there?
I'm here. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just calling from my PC.
No problem.
Right. Basically, I'm struggling with what seems like on the surface depression, but it's a lot more difficult than just that, I guess. I basically have zero motivation or self-esteem, like no willpower, no drive or anything like that. I'm not dumb. I have all the thoughts there in my head of all the things that I want to do, like dreams and aspirations and everything like that, but there's nothing physical. It's like someone else is controlling the body, I guess, kind of thing. Like I don't feel physically able to do anything. Everything seems impossible, I guess.
Did something happen, or was this like a slow brew kind of progression of negativity?
No, this has sort of been the way I've been all my life since about, I guess, 11 years old.
How old are you now?
28.
Okay.
I've tried many times to get to the root of the problem, by seeing like doctors or a GP or anything like that, and it just seems to lead nowhere.
Right. So you mentioned this started really young, so that makes me think this isn't necessarily a quarter-life crisis kind of thing. I mean, you mentioned you're 28 as well, so my knee-jerk reaction was to think that, I remember my late 20s and thinking just how difficult that time was. But this sounds like something you've been going through for a long time. Is that right?
Yeah.
Have you been able to identify any productive ways to apply yourself? Have you been productive financially? Have you identified things that fill you up, or like is there any light that you feel drawing you towards the end of the tunnel, or I'm just trying to get a sense of what the experience is like.
Um, well, suppose up until about a year ago, there's been nothing sort of keeping me here. Uh, but I've recently had a child, and
Okay.
I guess that's my reason for being here now.
Right.
The little baby.
That'll do it. Congratulations. That's a
Yeah.
huge thing. I imagine that with the with the experience you're having, I can only imagine that must be at the same time very enriching and rewarding, and also rather terrifying.
Yeah, like I enjoy the time I have with her, but there's always that underlining thing in the back of my head telling me that like I'm never gonna be good enough. I'm never gonna be what she needs, kind of thing. Like I I don't feel like I'm 100%, if you get what I mean by that.
Yeah.
I feel like at most 5%.
Well, I don't believe you're good at nothing, because you've clearly been at least successful at procreating, which is an accomplishment in and of itself. So what are you good at? I'm going to push some buttons here. What are you good at? And don't be coy. This is anonymous.
Um, I honestly couldn't tell you. I I have enjoyed things throughout my life, but say for instance, I used to enjoy rollerblading.
Okay.
There's never any drive to get better, to get like, like for instance, professional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm always like less than average at everything, because it
I'm
feels
sorry I laughed. I
impossible
thought you meant
to.
about the rollerblading. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I was thinking
That's just
yeah.
one thing. That's just one thing.
Okay, I was thinking, yeah, the learning curve to rollerblading is actually not that steep. So all the professional rollerbladers are hating me now. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I'm picking up on what you're saying now.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so you enjoy rollerblading. What do you enjoy about rollerblading? Is it being outside? Do you enjoy the outdoors? I'm trying to get an idea of what fills you up, what makes you feel good at the end of the day.
You know what? I don't really know. I don't know why I took up rollerblading. I think I've always been the type of person to see a trend and then do the complete opposite kind of thing.
Right.
So I think that's where that came from.
Right.
Like everyone when I was younger was, getting into skateboarding, and I saw that and was like, nah, I'll find something similar but different.
Okay. Could there be some anti-conformity happening?
Yeah, again with I struggle to identify with anything. Like I don't like being labeled as anything.
Right. Yeah, labels are overrated for sure. But they can be
Yeah,
helpful.
like to the point where someone would come up to me and say, "You are a white dude," and I'd be like, "No, okay, I'm not," but I am. But
right. I can relate with that. That's funny. Is there? I mean, my last question was a serious question though. Like, if there's some anti-conformist tendencies happening, I mean, that's a rough. I consider myself an anti-conformist, so that's what you're about to hear is coming from. But like that can be a really confusing road to navigate, because if you're looking around at people around you with, not cynicism. It's not always cynicism, but it's just like, well, yeah, like Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was like a teenager, everyone was into yo-yos, and I was just, I just didn't get what was so cool about yo-yos. I was like, I got one, but I was just like, I didn't practice because I wasn't into it. And this is a horrible analogy, of course, but the point is that like, I'm sensing, and I could be off base, but I'm sensing like maybe that you're a person who is really attuned to your surroundings and maybe has a different idea about what's valuable. And if that's true, then it could, that is a slippery slope of that often leads into negativity. And
Yeah.
if you're so anti-conformist that um, you're having that ultimately turns on you. It can ultimately turn on you. I've had that experience. I hope does any of this sound familiar? Or am I wasting your time? Because I don't want to waste your time. But I'm just
No,
sensing
no,
this.
it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I fully get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you hard on yourself? Are you your own worst critic?
Yeah, I have a deep hatred for myself.
Mm,
Not that I'm like a murderer or something, I'm a pretty like the most passive person you'll ever meet, but
okay.
I wouldn't hurt a fly. But yeah, just a deep hatred for myself, and
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know.
I'm really sorry to hear that. Um, self-hatred is serious. Um, do you have any idea where that
I
stems
think
from?
uh I have no idea to be honest, but I think it's my idea is that uh I have had undiagnosed autism or ADHD. So I feel like if that's true, that would have obviously been a massive factor in the way I am.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if you have something neuro if you have some neurodiverse tendencies, it sounds like they're undiagnosed. But if you feel that stuff may be true, um, can you afford to go get a diagnosis, like to be tested and get those answers? Because that could be a huge key to you. I mean, I think it's wonderful that you know uh, people like yourself are calling in here and sharing, because I think this can be a great precursor to some positive steps, including therapy and stuff like this. But uh, I'm wondering if I'm giving this so much of a preamble because I know that stuff's expensive, and I don't know if that's something you can afford or if you've thought about that. Like, is that something you can go do, is to get some answers? Did I lose you? Hello? Oh my goodness. Um, it seems we have lost the caller. It was an international number. I wonder if I can find the last call I connected to, because I'm concerned about this person. Give me a moment, chat, um, to try to track down who that caller was. I may be able to find this. I'm not actually sure I can, but it's possible. So bear with me. And caller, if you call back in, uh, your number looked strange. I'm assuming it's because you were international. So if you'll call back in, I may recognize it was a very strange looking number. But I'm looking for the last. Oh, I found the last call I connected to. I'm going to try calling it back. Here we go. This is my first outbound call. Let's see if this works. My gosh, there's so many calls going in. How do I connect to this call? Bear with me, chat. Not that one. This one. Here we go. Hello, is this the same caller that just got disconnected?
Yeah, hello.
Beautiful. We made it happen. Thank you for... I was trying to call you back, and then I saw your number. You had a very... not only your number is strange, but there's a weird caller ID thing happening. So I recognized it right away when it came in. Thank you for calling back. The chat, I'm sure, is relieved too, because they were bummed that we lost you.
I'm unable to call from my phone, so I use a website on my PC, and it only gives me 11 minutes.
Right. No, I was determined to find a way to reach you again. So I was concerned when you hung up. I was like, that could mean a number of things that I lost this person. So I was not about to let you go. I was asking you if you're able to go get a diagnosis for something like this, because that could be a huge reason for what you're going through.
Yeah, I was sort of in the process of doing that last year, and again, this is another problem I have. I seem to do everything last minute or not at all. Even something of that severity of how important that is, I would do it last minute or not at all, or forget about it entirely.
Right.
And so that happened last year, and I messed it up. I was sent a bunch of forms basically, and something to do with autism referral or something. It was like a huge booklet that I had to fill out with loads of paragraphs of questions, and I messed that up. And a couple of weeks ago, I got in touch with my doctor, and they're sending me more forms out, and hopefully this time I can do it. I don't know.
Right. What was your childhood like? Are your parents supportive? I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything else besides this autism and ADHD stuff that you mentioned that could be contributing.
I kind of live with my parents at the moment. I don't know how to word this. I don't think they were emotionally there enough, I guess.
Okay.
Like, I can't remember the last time I was hugged. You know, like I don't even think I was as a child or something. I don't know.
Right.
It's probably not that much of a big deal, but...
No, I'm thinking it is a big deal. And actually, I'm not alone. Argonian from Argonionen. Oh my goodness, these screen names. Guys, please get some real screen names. This is ridiculous. This chat is helpful, though. They say, ask the caller if his parents set high expectations. They sound like they have been made to be a perfectionist. Does that resonate?
No, not at all. Not at all. Quite the opposite.
So they were just unavailable emotionally. Were they affectionate?
Yeah. No.
Not affectionate. Okay.
No.
Is it possible that you don't know how to love yourself because you weren't shown how to?
It is 100% possible that I have not been taught how to deal with any emotion or show any emotion or understand emotion.
Okay. We had a caller call in on one of the first episodes of this that we did who was experiencing, who they had received a diagnosis of schizotypal. Are you familiar with that?
No, not in the slightest.
It's actually literally what you just told me, that you don't know what to do with emotion. And I wonder if a diagnosis, seeking out at least a diagnosis like that might be helpful. Because that, I'm with you that labels are overrated, but a lot of these psychological labels can be helpful in developing new patterns in our own lives so we can compensate for the ways that we are. Because we can't help the way that we are. We can't help the situations we grew up in, you know?
Yeah, I understand that, but there's another problem that arises there, is if I get a diagnosis and it turns out I have a reason for the way I've been my entire life, then I'm just going to be sat there thinking, I don't want this. I don't want these problems. I don't want to be like this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I honestly don't feel like there's any end to it. I don't know.
There's an end to everything, including life, but I don't sense you're there yet.
Yeah, no, I often dwell on that
You
constantly.
sound way too intelligent to be there, and also you got that beautiful European, dare I say, British accent going on. I don't want to know where you're from, but that accent is just gorgeous. So I'm just like trying to, like, yeah, I'm not going to let you give up hope here. I'm not going to let you go until I hear some hope from your voice.
Well,
And now I've got your
thanks
number,
for
so I'm going to be
the
calling you
kind
back,
words.
man.
Yeah, I don't believe I'm stupid or dumb or anything. There- there's no connection from my brain to physical.
Right.
If yeah,
Does it give you?
like I have all these,
Sorry, go ahead.
like I have all these thoughts, like and understandings of how things are and how I should be and what I'm doing wrong, but it I can't apply it. Like I can give near perfect advice to people.
Mm.
Like I've helped. I don't want to sound like big-headed or anything, but I've helped quite a lot of people with advice throughout my life. Like usually my friends would come to me and with their
Right.
troubles and with their problems, and I'd give them partially correct advice, I guess, you know. And I can say all these things, but I can't apply it to myself.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes our own problems are harder to see than the problems of others, especially if we've grown up in a situation where our emotions aren't acknowledged. I mean, your emotions were there as a kid, even if your parents didn't acknowledge them. Maybe that's why, maybe that is at least contributing to why you have such a hard time seeing and appreciating yourself. I mean, people are coming to you for life advice and stuff like that. That's serious. Like, I know that that is not a normal thing. So, and I can tell just from talking to you that you're um, intelligent and you have things to contribute. Um,
I yeah, I just see that's a really nice thing for you to say, obviously, and I appreciate it. But it, it's like I can't believe it, kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
I I don't know how to explain it other than I don't believe any of these things people say about me.
Well, let's start from the beginning then. Let's start real simple, and then we'll get more specific. Um,
Okay, this thing says I have 3 minutes left.
oh, your computer's telling you have 3 minutes left?
Yeah, it gives me 11 minutes at a time.
Oh, so we're going to have to do this in 11-minute chunks? I'll do that with you if we need to.
Are you sure? I'm I feel like there'd be a lot more people with deeper problems than mine.
No, your problem's real. Do you have a phone you can call? This is toll free. It's toll. I'm sure it's got to be toll free to where you are. Don't tell me where you're from, but I mean, if you have a phone, a regular phone, you can call toll free. The number on the screen.
No, I have tried and it didn't work.
Okay. I'm not letting go of you yet, so call me right back after we get cut off, and I'll try to call you back. It didn't let me call you. I don't know why. Maybe it's because we haven't set up outbound calls, but if we get cut off again, call me back. How about that?
Okay.
And I'll keep an eye out for this weird number that I can. It must be voice over IP because the number looks so strange. You know, what I was going to say is that the first step of this is that you were the fastest swimmer. We're getting real basic. I said we're going to start basic. We're going to start simple. You were the fastest swimmer. You were chosen. You know, you're here. You were born. And not only that, but you're a member of the human race, the most incredible, intelligent species there is. We're starting basic. I know none of this is personal to you, but you have a hard time accepting compliments and praise, and you have a hard time with self-worth. So we're starting real basic. I'm trying to give you reasons to not give up on yourself. At the very, very least, you were the one that was chosen to be born out of your parents, and on top of that, you're not just any other. You could have been anything in the animal kingdom, and you're a human, and that means you're gonna struggle with these things unlike any other animal, because you got consciousness, self-awareness.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you don't have value.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
So when we get cut off, while you're trying to call me back, I want you to be thinking about a real answer to the question I asked you a while ago, what you're good at, because you got to be good at something.
Okay.
And rollerblading's not an answer, unless you're making six figures rollerblading or something.
Okay, I'll have a think. I've got 10 seconds left.
All right,
so
call me back. I'm gonna wait. We're gonna wait.
back.
The chat and I are together. We're waiting for you. So call back.
Okay.
All right, guys, we're holding for this sweet human. Please hold off on the calls, everybody. When the lines get clogged, it's really hard for me to spot a specific number, and I've got this number. We've started a conversation with this caller. Let's see this through. So please, if you're calling, just hold off for a second. There will be other opportunities to call in after this. Please just give this caller a second to get through. We want to finish this conversation. Thank you for the messages in the chat. Thank you, Easy Cheesy TV. This caller needs our support. And the chat, if there's anybody in the chat who has some thoughts or ideas, I've already seen a number of ideas, but as we get more specific about what this caller's after, please, this is a place where we leave feedback for people. The chat is very much a resource for these callers after the fact, after these conversations. And there's still calls coming in. Guys, come on, don't be insensitive. Just hang up. If you're not this caller that's calling internationally from their computer that has 11 minutes at a time, hang up. I'm not going to answer. Hang up. You're all toast. I still haven't seen the caller come through. I'm just getting a bunch of calls from other people. Guys, please stop calling. I'm serious. I'm not going to answer this. I'm not going to answer anybody's call until I see this other person. I'm going to try to call them back. I wonder if it'll work. It's working. It's busy. Maybe they're trying to call. He was busy. I just keep seeing the same numbers calling over and over again, and I just got to say I'm really disappointed, guys. This is insane. What are you, 12? I tried to call the number again. Busy. Oh. I'm feeling helpless. I've tried, whoever you are, I've tried calling you twice now, and it's busy both times. I'm not sure if your number accepts inbound calls. But, all right, I'm just going to start toasting people. You're toast. You're toast. I'm just toasting people now because we're waiting. I'm just telling the people that are calling that they're toast. 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 These people, you guys are crazy. Please respect these callers. You guys are clogging the lines. Please respect these callers. There's still calls coming in. You guys are... This really disappoints me. This is very ridiculous. We have a person who's been struggling with something for over a decade. They're calling internationally from a phone that can only talk for 11 minutes at a time, and none of you guys can hold your calls. Dare I say, if you're calling in right now, you're the scum of the earth. I'm going to try to make another outbound call to this person.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed.
It's not working. Guys, I'm not sure what to do. I'm not seeing this number come in. I'm going to scroll through the missed calls and see if they've tried to connect. There's been so many calls coming in, I can't even see. So I might have just missed it. I did miss it. You guys, you got to stop clogging the lines. This person just called and we missed it because there's too many calls coming in. Stop calling. I'm not going to answer your call unless you're the person whose number I've saved. Stop calling. I'm getting upset. You're about to see me get mad. I'm going to kick my camera. Not really. I need the camera. I'm not going to destroy anything. Don't worry. But this is ridiculous. You guys are clogging the lines. Shame on you. Shame on you guys. I don't use that phrase, but I'm using it now because this is ridiculous. All right, chat, I'm leaving this up to you. Should we move on or should we give this caller another 90 seconds? I'm leaving this up to the chat. I'm not sure what to do. This caller has tried to call in. Their number does not accept incoming calls. I've tried calling 3 times. It's not connecting. What should we do, chat? We're waiting. Okay. Chat says wait. We're waiting. I stand with the chat. And I just keep seeing a bunch of this. I keep seeing the same, like, 20 numbers over and over again. Okay, I'm going to start rejecting calls to try to just clear the lines. So from here on out, if you're calling, you're getting rejected immediately, unless you're the caller we're waiting on. I'm not even going to toast you. I'm not even going to give you the amusement of a toast. You guys are just all getting rejected. I've already rejected like a dozen calls. Okay, rejected. 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 Toast, 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 toast. Man, you guys are... How old are you? You're about... Anybody who calls in the next 10 seconds is getting blocked. I will block your number permanently. I'm not joking. The next callers who call in for the next, until we talk to the caller, you're getting blocked, and you'll never be able to reach us again. Dead serious. All right, I'm starting to block people. Here we go. I'm blocking this person. Blocked. You're permanently toast. You are permanently toast. These people are permanently toast. I'm permanently toasting people. You'll never call this show. You'll never get through. Ever. I'll never unblock you for this. Toast. I have blocked 12 numbers. I'm blocking more. You guys are our first permanent toasts. Congratulations. I'm upset. This is ridiculous. All right. Lines look clear now. Nope. There's another one. You're toast. Permanent toast. I'm glad the chat is amused by the permanent toast. That's some comic relief. Anybody who's calling in right now for the next, like, it's already been 90 seconds, but the lines are still clogged, so we're waiting. We're waiting. If you call in right now, you're never going to get through because your number will be blocked permanently. Please leave the lines clear. We're waiting for a caller. And I'm going to try to, one more time, place an outbound call to this person. See if we can get through. Still not working. Yeah, I see you guys saying that the person's in the chat. But I'm not seeing a call from them. So, and just more callers keep coming. I have blocked like 30 numbers already, at least, maybe more. These people will never, ever call in again. So you're wasting your time if you're calling in right now. We're waiting for a very specific caller. If the person is in the chat, oh, I see. You guys are telling me in the chat that they're sharing things in the chat. Okay, they can't call back. Okay. I'm seeing that. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to try to, if you can't call back, I just want you, whoever you are, I want you to know that you're not alone. I have personally gone through experiences like this. It seemed like the chat lit up while you were talking, and so you're definitely not only not alone because of my experience, but also because of the experience of everyone in the chat who was lighting up. And there's probably a bunch of feedback you can get by going through the chat and reading through. But I don't want you to give up on yourself. You are not hopeless. We talked to a person last week who was schizotypal, and they were dealing with they were married, and they were about to have their first baby, and their wife was going through some pregnancy hormone stuff, and the schizotypal person didn't know how to deal with the emotions of their partner because they don't understand emotion. And I'm not calling you schizotypal. I'm trying to bring a very extreme case of a caller who called in to just serve as a baseline of hope for you that people like you can get answers and find brighter futures, brighter horizons. You know, you're not hopeless. I don't want you to give up on yourself. You sounded really down on yourself. I really enjoyed talking to you, whoever you were. We just held up the lines for like several minutes here trying to connect with you. I enjoyed talking to you so much. And also, I didn't want to let you go because I sensed that you really needed to talk to someone. I would encourage you to, whoever you are, really invest in yourself through some counseling and maybe seeing some kind of specialist for getting some answers on what's going on upstairs in your head. You know, like there's no shame in getting a diagnosis. I don't know if it was financial issues that kept you from getting a diagnosis or what it was, but I just want you to get some answers for yourself so that you can learn to appreciate yourself, because I just don't believe that you have nothing to contribute. You sounded way too intelligent. You sounded way too bright. You had way too good of a sense of humor, and you were even self-deprecating. You had a self-deprecating sense of humor, which is in my opinion, that's a really admirable trait. So I just don't believe that you have nothing to contribute, and I thought you were amazing to talk to. I thoroughly enjoyed the 20 minutes we must have spent talking. So if you ever get the chance to call in again, please call. Try to call if you can find a way to call in on a line that doesn't have a time restriction. I'd love to spend as much time talking as you want to take. So with that, I'm going to open up these phone lines again, and we'll get back to this. All right. To those who got blocked, you got blocked. I don't know what to tell you. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hi.
Hi. What do you want to talk about?
Okay. So just to kind of generalize what I'd like to talk about. So I've had some bad experiences with men in the last couple years. And I don't exactly mean romantically, like with boyfriends, but just some like weird experiences in general. And I think they've been playing into my self-worth and how I view myself and how I think in particular men view me. And I think it's starting to kind of negatively impact my life. And just to kind of start with that, about 2 or 3 years ago, I was in college, I think it was my junior year, and I walked over to a convenience store right next to my campus, and while I was in the store, an older man actually approached me, and he asked me if I could help him read something. And so in my head, I just assumed that it was like medicine or something like that, something small that he couldn't read. And so when I followed him, he actually he led me to the beer cave in the store. And he proceeded to assault me, actually. And
Oh my goodness.
again, I pushed him away and I got away from that. But that was, I believe, like the most terrified I've been. So at that moment, it was like a complete physiological, reaction. It was like a fight or flight response, just something I had never really went through before. And so since then, I've graduated college. I live on my own now. I was able to get my own apartment. But about um, maybe 3 weeks ago, I was at home in bed. It was pretty late at night. I had just showered, and I heard someone knocking at my door. And I didn't answer it because, again, I had just showered. I felt uncomfortable talking to someone, in my pajamas. And so I didn't answer it, but I had just a really weird feeling about it because there's not a lot of people who know where I live. So it's just my family and a couple close friends, and I didn't think any of them would show up late at night, and especially without telling me. And a few days later, my neighbor actually stopped me, and he asked me, well, he didn't ask me, but he told me that someone had been knocking on my door that night, and that it was like a really scary older man, and that he had actually went over to my neighbor's house as well, and he had claimed that he was my uncle and that he really needed to see me, and that he was asking my neighbor what time, like, did I get home, or did he know, like, if I was at work or something like that. And it really, ever since then, I've been basically terrified, and I find it really hard to sleep. I bought really expensive security cameras. I've just been really scared because of that, and I truly have no clue who it could have been. I order delivery fairly often, so I wonder if it could have been a delivery person. But since then, again, I've just been really scared. And about a couple days after that, actually, a police officer came to my door, and it was completely unrelated to what happened to me. But there was a break-in the area, and the police officer was just going door to door, and he was just telling people about the break-in. But basically, when he talked to me at the door, he made a little comment about asking for like my number, and he said that he wanted to like get to know me personally, I guess, is how he was trying to
The cop?
allude to it. And again, it
I'm
was
sorry, are you
very
talking about the cop wanted to get to know you personally? Is that what you said?
yeah, again, it was very strange. He said something, basically what he said was, I want to give you my personal phone number, but I feel like that would be inappropriate. And so again,
I would
very
have to
weird. And he
agree.
ended up not.
Sorry, I don't
What
mean
did
to
you say?
laugh.
Sorry.
I said I would have to agree that would be extremely inappropriate.
Yeah, so again, and he was young. I'm 23. He was probably about the same age, a little younger maybe. But again, and even a few days later, he found me on Instagram and like was reaching out to me because I had given him my first name. It's a small town, so it's not really that hard, I guess, to find someone that way. But again, it was just a very uncomfortable experience.
Right.
And so I've also been working a teaching job. I have a virtual teaching job where I teach English to adults online.
Hmm.
And I've been doing that to kind of help supplement the income from my first job. So again, I have my own apartment. Here lately, it's been getting a little bit harder to pay for things. So like I've been doing this English teaching job. But just recently, I've also been having these just horrible experiences. Like, for example, I signed into a class the other day, and immediately this man asks if he can take a picture of me. And I said no, that I wasn't comfortable with that. And I proceeded to go on with the lesson. And moments later, I hear a camera shutter go off. So I knew, of course, that he was taking pictures. And, I still had to go through with the class. I'm not allowed to leave. And then directly after that, I had another class with another man who was asking if he could call me a nickname. And then he was, telling me I was beautiful and asking for my socials, Facebook, Instagram. And since then, I really haven't worked the job at all. And so it just sucks. And it's kind of a weird thing to complain about, I guess. But again, just here lately, and ever since that first experience I've had, I feel, so down about myself because, again, anytime it's like I have an interaction with men, it's so negative, and I'm treated like, I don't know how to explain it well, but it feels like I'm treated like a commodity and not a person. And so I'm at this point now. I mentioned, of course, someone was at my door, and I truly believe that night that someone or whoever it was going to hurt me. I can't think of any other explanation. And since then, my parents they're really, really begging me to move back home because they're scared for me. And it just sucks. It sucks to think that you can work hard for something. So, it took me, this was my first apartment. It took me a little bit to put this together. I've been fighting for it. And then to think that someone, could ruin that for you. And then for my job as well, since I've had those weird interactions with people, I don't even want to work it anymore. I don't feel comfortable, and I really need the money. So it just sucks. And I've just been having experiences like this so often. And again, that police officer, that was, that's someone who's supposed to make you feel safe. And I felt so uncomfortable. And again, I think it's just been changing how I see myself. And there's been so many moments like that lately. And again, I feel like, and it's hard to explain, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of at everyone else's, I'm just put in front of everyone else, and I can't really do anything for myself, and I'm just seen as a product, I guess. I know that's hard to explain, but it's just been kind of rough.
Sounds like it. Sounds like that was a lot you just went through.
Yeah, sorry, I know that was a lot to say.
No, it sounded like you needed to get that out. Do you have anybody that you've shared this with other than myself in the chat here?
Bits and pieces. Of course, I've told family and friends about the person at my door. But it's something hard to talk about because, and even like I've tried to talk about this with people in the past, and they almost think that you're trying to like brag about getting attention.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you're someone who's had these experiences, you know that it's not flattering in any way, of course, and it doesn't mean there's anything special about me. It's just that someone sees me and chooses to, act strange because they can. It's more like a power thing. But again, it's hard to talk to it about. It's hard to talk to it about it with people because they just, I don't know. They seem like it's not really a big issue. But again, I just feel so down about myself and thinking that I might have to leave my apartment because someone, could potentially do something harmful. And then thinking that I can't even work this job because people, want to give me compliments or take pictures of me. That really sucks too. And so I just don't feel like I have control over things right now.
Well, you mentioned you're in a small town, and small towns tend to be really regressive, and the first thing you led with was that you were struggling with men and small towns. Need I say more? I'm wondering, is that experience exclusive to small towns for you? Is there another town you could move to that where you would feel more safe, where you could also be employed? Would moving closer to home be a good idea? I don't want to know where that is, but would it be a bigger town that you could move back to? I'm wondering, if you're having trouble in this small town with men taking pictures of you and whatnot, is it possible that getting out of that experience might be a good thing? And could you find work elsewhere?
Yeah, so that was actually, so the men doing the pictures and stuff, my job is actually virtual, so I didn't mention that, but, these were men that don't even live in my town, but yeah, you're totally right, of course, living in a smaller town, especially being someone younger, it does, there's a lot of older, strange men around here too, but this is, I live in my hometown, so my parents are actually close by. So after college, I did end up moving back. And, I think about moving. I even think about traveling and just doing different things like that. But even that kind of scares me, especially being alone. And so, it would be great to think I could move somewhere and feel safer, but I don't really know where that is, I guess.
I guess that's a tough problem because like someone taking a picture of you, it's not like you can just spray someone with mace because they took a picture of you or
Yeah.
something. Like your options are limited, and it must feel like you're trapped and you feel like you can't get away from it. And what are you supposed to do, or something?
Yeah.
Well, I hope first and foremost that this is not going to ruin your expectations of men everywhere for all time. I hope that you're able to kind of compartmentalize what's happening. I would hate to see this like affect you in some way that has, repercussive events, or it takes on different shapes.
Yeah.
I'd love to see you be able to nip this in the bud and find some way to work and feel safe. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get to the bottom of what you should do as like practical next steps to like I can't, and obviously like none of us here, I'm pretty sure, can tell you how to evade a stalker. But I do want to just like, I just want to acknowledge what you're going through and empathize that, and tell you that I, at least, and a bunch of people in the chat also think that is just super creepy and weird and shouldn't be happening. And I hope that at least gives you some encouragement. It sounds like some people in the chat have had some similar experiences that they've dealt with in a number of ways. I'm not attractive enough to have been stalked for pictures of my face by people, so I can't weigh. I can only weigh in so much. But I do know that people can be very weird, especially with cameras, and that people don't really. There's some weirdos out there, especially in small towns. And I'm not dogging on small towns because I came from a relatively small suburb of Nashville. So, I grew up in a small-ish town. There's a lot of weirdos in places like that. And I'm really sorry that you've just not found, I mean, it must feel really horrible not feeling like your home is a safe place. You mentioned you've invested in some expensive security cameras, and at the same time, you're struggling to pay for your apartment. That sounds like a really tall order.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I don't want to give up. So again, kind of talking about a small town, it's really customary here, even still, for a lot of girls to just live at home until they get married. So that's what a lot of women in my family did. They just waited, until, they were their mid to late 20s or even early 20s, and then just married someone, and that was it. And I'm someone, I put myself through college, and then again, I got this apartment for myself, and it just felt really, really good for a while. But then it's just scary to think that, people can come along and be strange and mess things up for you. So it just feels, I don't know, I don't want to give up. I don't want to go back home with my family. I'd like to stay living on my own. That's something I worked for. So again, it's hard, and I know there's no clear solution for it, but just being able to get it out there and actually just say what I've been feeling is so helpful. And of course, I really appreciate you all listening.
Of course. Is there anything else? Did you just want to get that off your chest? I mean, what would make this a beneficial call? What would help you feel better?
I'm truly just talking and just being able to vent about it. Again, I've mentioned things in pieces to people, but I don't think they really see it as any more than just a slight annoyance, and they just don't really think about kind of the lasting impacts of, interacting with people. And again, their interpretation of you is only what can I get from you, or something like that. That's just kind of how it feels. Just another quick thing, if you don't mind. I recently had, I guess, just an interaction with one of my really, really close friends. And this is someone I've known since I was, probably 12, 13. We've been friends for so long. And he kind of just confided in me that he was interested in pursuing me romantically.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation just turned kind of weird, and that he was like, he wasn't intentionally trying, but he was almost sounding kind of like possessive. And again, it was like he was talking about pursuing me, but it was like I had no say in the matter. So he was
Right.
talking about how he wanted to pursue me, but then he got a little scared, and how he thought that. So I mentioned, of course, I told him very quickly that I just
Sorry,
didn't
I'm
feel
laughing
that
at I'm
way.
laughing at this guy, not you or your story. I'm just laughing at that somebody would think this.
Fine. You're fine. Yeah, so of course that's how it feels too. It feels very silly. And again, it feels like, as a woman, I would never approach someone and put my feelings onto them if I didn't think they felt that way. So again, it just feels kind of silly when people treat you like that. It almost feels offensive that they're not considering, what your feelings are. It's just that they want to put theirs out there. And again, that's not really, none of that's a big issue or anything. But again, it just made me feel really,
I think it's a big
really
issue.
hurt, I guess. Oh, sorry, what did you say?
No, I'm sorry. I interrupted, but I just wanted to interject that I think that's a big issue. Men thinking that their opinion is the only one that matters. I think that's a pretty big issue.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I know that to some people these might not seem like big issues at all, but when things kind of like happen in close succession, it really starts to hurt your confidence and just how you see yourself.
Right.
So again, and this is really weird, but this same friend who was telling me this, he referenced a time about a year ago when we were hanging out. And at that time, he had a girlfriend, and we were all hanging out together. And he told me that during that time when we were hanging out, he was wishing he was with me instead. And again, like maybe he meant that to be flattering, but it was so like offensive to me, offensive to her, but offensive to me in the sense that during that whole time, I'm just thinking about being with my friends. So it's really just kind of offensive to think that someone is with you and they're just thinking of how they could get with you romantically, I guess. So again, you don't want to think that someone's thinking of you like that when you're just trying to have, a nice platonic time with someone, right?
Right.
Yeah. So again, none of these are huge issues, but it just has been weighing on me, and I don't want people to look at me as just what they can get from me. And, this person who was coming to my door, again, that kind of angered me too, that someone could be so arrogant to think that they could, just hurt somebody else, and again, in my head, that's really what I think was going to happen if I answered the door that night. I think someone was going to hurt me. And that's just, again, that's so arrogant, because I'm a person too.
Right.
My life matters. You don't have a right to hurt me or hurt someone else. So again, it just kind of weighs on you after a while, and you start to think, is this really how people look at me? Is just what can they take from me?
Right. I'm so sorry you've had this experience.
That's okay. Thank you.
I hope it feels good to at least just vent. I mean, obviously, I can't send like hitmen to your small town and wipe these people out. But,
Yeah.
it sounds like you've taken some good steps towards your own personal privacy and security with, cameras and whatnot. I hate that you had to go to that step, but it's a nice resource and to have in your scenario. I wish you the best in determining what is next for you, whether you take your parents' offer to move closer back to home or even back in with them temporarily. I know that probably doesn't sound like music to your ears at your age. Maybe there's an opportunity in a bigger city somewhere, even like a medium-sized city. These places, even a medium-sized city is filled with reasonable men and people in general. I mean, people in general are just, in my opinion, like mid-sized cities are pretty great. Pretty easy place to live. Small and big cities are pretty hard places to live for different reasons, very different reasons. It sounds like I'm just hearing you talk, and I can tell you've been dealing with a lot of anxiety. I can hear it in your voice. And I hope that you can find some place to live where you feel peace and comfort and, that you can build back a sense of security and sounds like maybe also some, you mentioned you were being really hard on yourself. I hope you know that this has nothing to do with you or your value. Your value is not dictated by men with no taste. It's dictated by what your value is. And it seems like you know your value. It seems like you know what you're good at, and you're applying yourself in really productive ways. So I hope you continue leaning into that, and that you don't let these stupid guys in your town weigh you down, because there's stupid guys everywhere. Stupid girls in some places too, but there's a lot of stupid guys in small towns, and and that's what you're calling about. So specifically to that, I just want to make sure the guys in the chat know I'm not just hating on guys here, because I'm a guy. But also, I just want to make sure that you don't feel like this has. I mean, clearly it has something to do with you, because at the very least your physical appearance, because guys are taking pictures of you and stalking you, but it doesn't have anything to do with you as a person. And I hate hearing. I hear it in your voice, like you're really anxious about this.
Yeah.
And I hope that you can find some sense of self-worth outside of this, maybe in your job or in volunteering or something like that, something that can bring you some sense of comfort and peace and security.
Yeah, so thank you so much for saying that.
Is there anything else you want to share before I let you go?
If I could just very quick say one thing. I just recently this week, I interviewed for a job. My major was psychology, and this job I would be working with, I'd be counseling children who have things like anxiety, depression, OCD. So I really think that this job could be a way to kind of change my life and give me the financial means to be able to hopefully go to a new city. And so again, if you all could just give me some good thoughts, that would be great.
So you want some thoughts on, sorry, we've got some trolls in the chat. I'm trying to moderate. I really apologize. I'm trying to figure out how to manage all these voices at the same time. Can you remind me what specifically you wanted input on?
Yeah, sorry, not like thoughts, but just some, good vibes, I guess. Wishing me well for this job. I'm hoping that I get it. They said they'd let me know in a few days. So
amazing.
Again, I really think it could change things for me.
Great. That's so awesome to hear. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, and I wish you the best of luck, and please call back anytime.
Of course, thank you.
Take care. All right, Offcore, I've added you as a moderator to this chat. I recognize your name, so feel free to toast trolls in the chat. Have at it. Be careful. Don't toast the wrong person. I'm trusting you. Okay. Offcore's made pretty much every single one of these, so I keep seeing his name or her name. I believe Offcore told me they're a he, but there have also been other people telling me that they're a she, and they're a they. So I can't remember. I'm really sorry, but I do trust you as moderator. So there you go. I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break, and then we're going to dive in. This will probably be the only break for the night. I'm still toying around with these intermissions to find the best balance. And I realized that we've only taken 2 callers because we were waiting for that international caller to get back in, and it never happened. So I realized this is a bit of a rough time to take a break for the viewers. But I have just got to do it, or I'm not going to be as good of a listener. And that's what this whole thing is about, is to make this a valuable time for these callers. So I'm going to step away for 5 minutes, a very short break, clear my head, and then we'll be right back. If you will continue with anything in the chat that you may have for either of these callers we've spent a decent amount of time talking with here, that would be a great use of that time. Otherwise, do whatever you feel like doing in the next 5 minutes. I'm going to go run to the restroom and, just clear my head and check my phone and take a little break. Maybe that was TMI, but I don't care. This is real. That's what I'm going to go do. All right, I'll be right back. All right. We back. Sorry, I got some throat noises going on. Okay. Here we go. Gonna turn these calls back on. And we're gonna see what's gonna happen. Hi, thanks for calling. Toast. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hi, Julian.
Hi. What do you want to talk about?
How you doing?
I'm all right. What do you want to talk about?
Well, my difficulty is about a week and a half away from now,
Oh,
but I felt it was important to talk about it, before we continue.
there may be a connection issue. Are you in a good signal area for the call?
I think I am. Are we a little lagged?
I lost you for a little bit there. I can hear you now. Let's keep going. So
Okay, yeah.
you mentioned you've got an issue coming up in about a week or so. What's going on?
Yeah. So my school year is coming to an end, and I'm in my 30s. I'm a graduate student, and there are some of the undergrads that I've been working with in the theater at the university that have kind of latched on to me. They call me Dad, and at first it was just kind of a fun joke, I'm the old guy, so I'm Dad.
Right.
But one of the students, a male student, asked if he could move in with me at the end of the school year over the summer because he didn't want to go home to his parents. He feels that they're not good for his development. I don't want to share too much about him. He's between 18 and 20 years old. He views me as a pretty significant mentor. And I'm concerned for him, that I don't want to tear him away from his family if his issue is just, I don't like my parents. At the same time, I'm concerned for me because, taking in someone who is, in effect, still growing up, that's a massive responsibility, and I don't want to screw him up either.
So the issue, is it like a responsibility issue? Like you're getting, it sounds like you're getting kids who started calling you Dad as kind of a joke, and now they're like really looking to you as a fatherly figure because of parental issues in their own life.
Yeah, in essence, that seems to be what it is. I don't want to share too much because I don't want anybody in chat to make any inferences or anything. It's a religious environment. It's a religious school. I'm working towards becoming a minister. That's part of the graduate school program, and so one of our main tenets of our religious belief is honoring father and mother.
Right.
And I don't want to tear him away from that.
Fifth commandment.
If he needs that for his development, it is a commandment. Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm concerned for myself taking on a responsibility like that, but I'm also concerned for him in terms of his development.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure. I don't necessarily want him to feel like I'm rejecting him, but I also don't necessarily know if it's the right thing to do, to take him in for the summer.
So he wants to move in with you?
Yeah, just for the summer, and then go back to campus when school year starts again.
Why is he safer with you in your house than on campus? Do his parents live on campus?
Well, no, he's not allowed to stay on campus over the summer.
Oh, got it. I'm sorry if I missed that. I am having a little bit of trouble hearing you, but I'm getting the general sense of what you're calling about.
No.
Well, I mean, is it possible that these kids are growing up in toxic environments? Because, I mean, I also believe that honoring, yeah, I also believe that honoring your mother and father is extremely important, and I also, yeah, no matter what, that's important. But also, I believe, I guess I should say not but also, and at the same time, I believe that a lot of kids grow up in really harmful situations. Do you know anything about these kids or this specific kid's home environment? Are they in a hostile or dangerous or even belittling home environment?
Sure. So this particular kid, I haven't met his parents. From what I understand, he feels that that they're restricting his ability to develop as an adult.
Right.
It's a very rural environment. He grew up on a farm, and so he feels that when he goes home, he's basically just free labor.
I see.
There's not any real care happening there. He's just being used in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Is he being abused? Is there some kind of...
No, not abused as far as I know. Just not necessarily being loved the way he thinks he ought to be.
Okay. So, what would make this a helpful call in your eyes? What I'm struggling to pick up on what exactly you're after.
I think I don't have a lot of people to talk to myself in a situation like this that don't know that student. And so I guess I was looking for wisdom from someone who is dispassionate, unbiased, outside of the situation.
Mm-hmm. So, sounds like you're looking for some feedback on this situation and trying to determine if this is a crazy idea to... It sounds like you really care about this kid. Sounds like, when I say kid, it sounds like they're not that much younger than you anyway.
Yeah, well, he's about 10 years younger.
Okay. Do you know this kid's parents?
I have met them briefly at a couple of the theater productions, but I don't know them. No.
What was your impression of them from meeting them?
Pretty stereotypical rural farming family. I grew up in a farming community as well, so it was familiar to me. Father that seems a touch detached, I guess, from the rest of the family. The mother is, I guess, more, kind of deferring to the father in a lot of things.
Right.
His sisters are very lively, but he is the only son living at home right now. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is not a life advice show, so I'm struggling to, and this sounds like a really nuanced situation. So I'm really holding back from giving specific feedback, but I do have a couple of thoughts that I'll let go of just to see what you respond with.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I think it's fair that you say that it's not a life advice show. I appreciate that honesty.
Yeah, well,
I guess I misunderstood the concept of the show.
No, I mean there are people who have called in looking for specific feedback on things, and this, the chat and I have had a few callers where we've been able to give some ideas that have at least seemed to be helpful to the callers. So I just always give that disclaimer that it's like, this in general, this is like a sounding board and a place to come get support. Like, we had some people calling in contemplating suicide, and we've had people, who've just like been processing really heavy things from their childhood, and they just need a place to just get things off their chest. So that's kind of the first and foremost thing. But there are also people that, need a sounding board. They need, and they want an anonymous sounding board, or they have a confession they want to make. And so I'm trying to kind of find the balance of what this thing is. And I'm not saying that you've called in for a bad reason. But, I do have a couple questions for you, or a couple things that I'd like to hear you respond to, because it seems like this kid has really specific ideas about why he shouldn't live at home with his parents over this break from school. For those who are just tuning in or maybe confused, we have a caller who is trying to decide if they should take a fellow student in for the summer over school break. I believe you said you're in grad school, and this student is an undergrad, and they're 10 years younger, and they don't want to go back home because their parents don't really value them, and they just see them as free labor on their farm. They run a family farm. And I'll stop right there to kind of add something that I want to hear you respond to, because, and this might be a controversial take that I have. I don't live on a farm, so I my take might be irrelevant, but I do have some, I come from there's a lot of farming in my family. My grandfather owns thousands of acres across the country, which a lot of which is he's used as farmland over his life. So I'm not a stranger to farming, and I have some opinions about farming that, again, might be controversial. So I'll share them, and I'm willing to take heat for them, and I'm willing to even be wrong, but I just want to hear how you would respond to them, because I'm trying to understand what the motivation of this kid is. My take on farming is that farming is not natural, first and foremost. It's a agricultural practice. It's the basis of agrarian society. It's this thing that we all, it's the basis of life in the civilized world. So the way that works is that a lot of these farmers do run family farms, especially the smaller ones. And so my hot take is that at the very least, actually this part's not my hot take, at the very least, the earliest farms were family farms, and it was the only way it was possible, in at least the beginning, was for families to work together, and it was kind of part of their survival. So I'm not really convinced right out of the gate of this kid's argument if the only thing he's hanging his hat on is that he's going to move back home and his parents are going to make him farm. On one hand, I'm thinking like, well, that's just the line of work your family's in, and that's a really hard line of work, which again is like why it's usually a family business. And that might be a hot take that people have opinions on. I'm willing to be wrong, but and I've never been a farmer. My parents weren't farmers, just to be very clear. So I don't know what that's like, but my hot take is that family farming is kind of just par for the course with a lot of these smaller farms.
Yeah, so I guess I was expecting a question at the end of that, but um, from what I understand, his feeling is not just I'm going to go home and work on the farm, and I don't like that.
Okay.
He's been working on the farm since he was old enough to walk. I think his feeling is, okay, I'm not going to give specifics, between the ages of 18 and 20, at this point I should be able to choose what I do when I go home, if I work on the farm or if I go into town and get a separate job, or if I get a job working online, because he's very computer oriented now.
I see. So his family doesn't support him getting another job.
Doesn't have a choice.
Sounds like his family doesn't support him getting another job. Is that right?
That's from what I understand, the concept is if you come home, you're going to work on the farm.
I see.
If you want to get another job, you're not coming home.
Is his only option to shack up with you for the school break? I mean, can he get another job where he can get some short-term lease somewhere? Do you think it sounds like you're, that's a loaded question. I was going to ask if you think it's a better idea. I was going to ask if you think it's a better idea for him to move in with you than to go back home. But, I mean, I could tell you're really conflicted about this, so you might not have an answer for that.
Right, and yeah, I am conflicted. I don't want to give a biased answer. I think it would be beneficial to him to try to be entirely independent. I don't know if it would be plausible for him to try to do so for the short time of a summer break.
Mm-hmm. Jaden from the chat says to you, you are not responsible for other people's peace and happiness. I do agree with that. I do agree with that at the very least. That some people, I'm not sure if this person's, it doesn't sound like they're being abused unless there's something that you're not telling us, or unless there's something that you're not aware of. If this person's not being abused, maybe it's not that extreme of a situation. Like maybe this is just like some growing pangs.
Mm-hmm. I can see the chat right now.
Great.
Someone, Inubasha, I think, ask, is the caller supposed to support him financially for the summer? That would not be the plan, no.
Right. I didn't
I
get
would
that
expect
impression.
him to get a job and pay his fair share.
Right.
It's really just a matter of trying to decide with him what's best for him for over the summer.
Right.
So and again, it's I don't want to take up too much time because I'm sure that there are people who do want to call who have had some more appropriate things to talk about with you. I guess I'm really just concerned about doing the right thing by this young man that does view me in such a way.
Right. Well, there's a lot of interesting ideas in the chat. I am admittedly very much holding back from weighing in on this, but I want to make this a useful call for you because this seems important. It does seem important. I mean, it doesn't sound like anybody's life is on the line necessarily, but I mean, you know, that sounds like a pretty heavy decision. So, and that's the reason I'm not really weighing in specifically. I hope that there are some useful ideas in the chat, and I hope it was beneficial, at least just using us as a sounding board.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the little bits of wisdom that you've thrown in, the little bits of wisdom that the chat has thrown in, and I'm looking at the chat, and there are definitely some people who would get better use of the phone time. So
Right.
I will let you go, and I appreciate your help.
Okay, thanks so much for calling in. Call back anytime. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, I do appreciate the callers who call in and still recognize that there are callers in the chat waiting to call in with really serious problems. Again, I will say that I appreciate that they call in to begin with because I'd rather people call in than not because that's what this is all about. So if you're on the fence about calling in, please just call in and we'll talk to you, at least for a few minutes, and we'll see what's going on. Okay, we're going to open up these phone lines here. It does seem like there's some people from the chat who've been trying to get in, so we'll see what's going to happen. Hi, thanks for calling.
Oh, hello?
Hi. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, it's me. Oh. Honestly, I didn't think I'd get on here.
Is there something you want to talk about?
Not really.
Toast. Got to open up the phone lines again. Please don't call unless you've prepared something. You guys might note I've added to the disclaimer on the screen. Please prepare something short to jump into because we do have a lot of people who are trying to call in, and we want to respect them. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hi, am I on?
You're on. What do you want to talk about?
Sorry, my thing is lagging.
It's
Hi,
okay.
I guess I just want to talk about, I've just been having some family issues, and I guess I just needed to vent, if that makes sense. Can you hear me? Sorry.
I can hear you. That's great.
Okay. So I just, to start, a couple months ago, I got diagnosed with ADHD, and it's been kind of an experience, kind of learning and figuring out life and looking back at my past and kind of seeing how it all happened, and I guess seeing how it happened in my childhood and things that affected it. And just being grown up, I think I've just seen my childhood differently and seeing how, I don't know, my dad was a very loving man. He is a very loving man. He's a very good person. But I don't know, he just emotionally did not understand how to treat his daughters, if that makes sense. He had only girls, and he just didn't know how to cope with our emotions, and sometimes would go to yelling with that. And I don't know, I guess I'm kind of looking back and seeing how much that affected me. And my mom kind of says all the time how I am a carbon copy of my dad, like in every single way, and how everything he is, I am. And I don't know, and whenever I talk about my ADHD, she's like, I think Dad has that too. You're right. I see that in him, just like I see it in you. And
I guess I'm really scared. I'm recently married for 2 years now, and we're thinking of having kids, and I think I'm just kind of scared that I'm going to be like that. I'm going to be like my dad and be that emotionally distant person who is just, I don't know, laughs at you and yells at you when you cry, and because I do have those emotional tendencies, I guess, and I don't know if this makes sense. I've just been thinking about it a lot, and it's been on my mind and my heart, and I've been overwhelmed with it and kind of scared of the future.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Having kids is really scary too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are naturally scared of that decision. I think we're all kind of scared of what habits we'll pick up from our parents, or what tendencies, rather. It sounds like you're a really self-aware person. It sounds like you have acknowledged the similarities you have with your dad in ways that maybe he hasn't. That would be my guess. Because you mentioned that these are ongoing problems with your dad, and so that leads me to believe that your dad is not very self-aware. Is that?
He's not.
Okay.
You're really right on that. Yeah.
Okay. So you've got that going for you. You sound self-aware. That sounds like a perfect recipe for, I mean, what else does anybody want but self-aware parents? You know, there are several things people want besides that, of course, but that's, a lot of people want that. Are you doing okay? Did something traumatic happen that is serving as the basis for this, or is it just this gnawing feeling that you won't be a good parent?
That's a loaded question. How long do you have? I'm kidding. I guess I just had a lot of depression and anxiety, and as I've been trying to learn about it and figure my life out, I don't know, my dad has a lot of crap that happened to him, and a lot of it because of his own choices, not choices, but like because of his own faults and flaws, and it's affected me a lot. He got fired from his job, and just, this is gonna sound crazy, and it's gonna so he got fired from his job, and when he went to go and talk to the men that he worked with, they were teachers. He kept kind of going back to them, asking for forgiveness and all this stuff, and they just wouldn't have it. There's one guy in particular who got my dad fired for no fair reason. And anyways, what happened was my dad texted one of them and said, "Hey, can I come over and talk and just figure this out and apologize again?" He said, "Yeah, come on over at 3." And my dad got there. The door was locked, and the guy cracked it open just a little bit, and he said, "You have to leave now." And then the other teacher, he came out and he's like, "If you don't leave now, we're calling the cops." And my dad, he's like, you said that I could come and I need to talk to you guys. And so he opened the door the rest of the way. He walked into the foyer, and the teacher pushed him down, and pretty hard. And so my dad was pretty pissed, and he stood up and punched the guy in the gut. And
okay.
Anyways, they called the cops. Yeah, they called the cops on my dad, even though the guy attacked him, and my dad went to jail, and was put in jail for a count of 3 terrorist attacks, with burglary and stalking.
My goodness.
Most of the charges were taken off, but my dad's never been the same since. And
I see.
I don't know, it just really affected me. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
And I don't know, I think it just hurts because I do see myself in my dad so much, in every way, in the good and the bad, and I just feel for him. I see how much pain he's in, and like you said, I'm very self-aware. I've always seen that in myself, and my dad is not. And instead of realizing what he's going through, and trying to like cope with it and go to therapy, he projects it out on us emotionally, and like sometimes mocks us for our emotions. And like he, like growing up, we're very religious, and what he would sometimes use the Bible against us by saying like, girls, you're laughing too loud, and the scriptures say no loud laughter, it's evil. And later on we learned that he was afraid that we were laughing at him. Like he was so insecure that he just projected all of it on us and just attacked us.
I see.
And you know, and it's just sad because he is a really good man, but he just has these such deep insecurities that it's really wrecked us. And
right.
but it's just, I don't know, I guess I've just been reflecting on it a lot lately and realizing how much it really did damage me, and how I view my relationship with my husband, and how I'm afraid to show my emotions to him as well, and how I'm afraid I will be like that as well, like as a mother. Like I'm just destined to be that way, if that makes sense.
Well, you started crying a little bit. You started tearing up when you mentioned the story about your dad, which is a traumatic story about your dad reacting in some self-defense and then being labeled as a terrorist.
Yeah.
That's intense, and it sounds like there's been some trickle down to you from that story. I mean, you got emotional when you told that story. It didn't even happen to you. It happened to your dad.
Yeah.
And that is, in my experience, very normal. That like our parents' experiences can affect us as their kids, and we do share in our parents' trauma in certain ways. And maybe your dad's. Is it possible your dad's insecurities? You mentioned that these insecurities started. A lot of them started after the fact, after this story of him being labeled as a terrorist for self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that was really unfair. And I wonder, because you started crying when you told that story, if in some ways you feel like you shared in that trauma, and if maybe that's something that you might be able to separate yourself from, because you do sound very self-aware.
Thank you. I think that's very true, what you said, just how I really need to separate myself from that. I have a problem with, I don't know, some people call it like being an empath, other people call it being like overly like super sensitive. But I've just been able to really take in people's emotions, and I make it myself, and I try and help them. I kind of make it my responsibility to fix their problems. And so as a parent, like my dad just falling from this experience, it's been hard to separate like you said, separate myself from his feelings from it, and just living my own life and moving on, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird because like there's times where I'm like, yeah, I moved on, I've forgiven and forgotten, you know, and they're all faulted men and they're trying to do their best, but then there's moments where I just get so angry and I get so emotional, and at the men and sometimes at my dad, and I don't know, I think I guess I'm just calling because I just have such a bitter feeling toward him. And I don't know if it's because of this trauma that I'm like putting myself in, or because of how he treated me. I don't know. I just don't want to feel bitter. I don't know how to fix it.
It sounds like you had some expectations that weren't met for what a dad should be. And, you know, I won't be able to, first of all, I'm not a psychologist, so I can't help you get to the bottom of a lot of that. And also, you know, these calls aren't therapy. I mean, these are very short phone calls. I do wonder if you have a sponsor or some kind of counselor that is helping you process some of this. Do you have someone that's helping you process this?
Yes,
That's good.
I've gone to therapy a lot, and
Good.
I meet with a psychiatrist, and
Okay.
I have a really good support system.
Okay.
And sorry, you're right. I know you're not a therapist. I guess
No, don't be sorry. This is a good place to vent.
Yeah, I think I also just needed to vent, and like a lot of callers who've come in just speaking to like a new ear, like an unbiased opinion and an unbiased ear.
Right. Well, I will say that I resonated with a lot of what you said, and I do think it's pretty. I think it's perfectly. I won't say normal, because I know people who have no problems with their parents at all. But I think it's perfectly understandable that there's a lot of parents out there who don't give their kids what they need. But I would say that these parents are parents who are not self-aware or have not come to terms with the injustices in their own lives. I don't get that vibe from talking to you, that you're someone who can't see the things that you're up against. I mean, you're sitting here telling me that you see these things, these tendencies in your dad and yourself. I can't think of a better person to raise your future kids than you. I can't think of a better person to break these familial cycles in your family than you. Someone who was raised with the things you were raised with and may also have the tendencies you have. It sounds like some of these tendencies you don't like, but you're aware of them. And that's half the battle, in my opinion, I mean, that's what Alcoholics Anonymous is identifying that you got a problem and you're going to work on it. And I want to see someone like you have kids.
Thank you. That actually really meant a lot. Thank you. You don't understand. That meant a lot. So thank you.
Is there anything else? I mean, what would make this a helpful call?
No, thank you for listening, and thank you for your advice and your kind words. It really means a lot, and I will definitely go back in the chat and read what they've said as well.
Great. There's a bunch of good ideas in there. I hope any of them are helpful. And call back anytime.
Thank you, Julian.
Take care. All right. Let's open up these lines again. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hello.
Hi. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, I've got quite a few things on my mind on this day.
Okay.
It's been a really rough few couple of weeks, and like the previous caller was saying, it's something important to me to, allow myself to vent into someone that doesn't know about these kinds of things in my life, or maybe has experienced similar things. I'll sum it up quickly, because I see how much you've helped the people that have called, and I don't want to avoid, or I just want to avoid taking that time away from other people. But
what's going on?
I'm 19. I'm a young man and still really trying to find my way in this planet. I've struggled with addiction to minor drugs. I have a real hard time letting go of that, because I'm the type of person that can identify what I'm doing wrong and see what I'm doing wrong and recognize what I'm doing wrong, but implementing the strategy to get better just doesn't work. I don't know how to go about these kinds of things. But my primary problem right now is about 9 months ago, I got out of my first relationship of 2 years, and I know it's a really common problem that people deal with, and I knew about it prior to having to deal with this kind of problem, but I just didn't really understand the scope of it, how much pain that brings. She's already moved on with somebody else, very similar to me, somebody that takes part in these kinds of hobbies. And I guess the main reason why I'm wanting to call is how do I avoid this mental insanity of questioning everything that has happened in the past and questioning my own self-worth and questioning whether or not she cares about me, which obviously that shouldn't matter, but for some reason it does. I don't know. I was just wondering, how you've gotten through these kinds of things in your life.
I apologize if I missed something, but it sounds like you're under some feelings of regret or remorse from a past relationship. You're having trouble getting over it?
Right, correct. It's tough because it's not easy to identify whose fault it was that it ended, nor do I think that's a useful thing to do. But I kind of shut it out, I shut it out for the first couple months. I didn't even realize that I was in denial. And I just got back from a national tour with my band, which I kind of laser beamed all of my focus and attention to. Like that was the only thing that matters. And then my dreams came true and that happened. And now I got back and I've got this like final boss of a mental monster to deal with of losing my first love,
Right. Well, we can't always know why things end. I think that's a really common problem.
Right.
I can relate with that.
Right.
But the best you can do sometimes is to this is something I feel very comfortable just coming right out and giving some advice, because I think you've got this is a very normal problem. I think this is like a lot of people go through this. So oftentimes, all you can do is it sounds like you've identified some things that you contributed to the relationship that might have resulted in it ending. It's not to say that you were completely to blame. I'm sure that the other person had some fault in it too. Relationships are never...
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I feel pretty comfortable in saying that most of the time when there's a breakup of any kind, all you can do is identify what you would have liked to do differently in that relationship and carry that into the future.
Right.
The emotional stuff I can't help you with. That's just something you're going to have to go through. I don't think anybody can help you with that. If it's like really serious, if you're depressed, like, counselor can help you with that. Sometimes medication can be helpful, obviously. I'm not sure on what level you're dealing with this, but, I will say that most times all you can do is look at what you would have done differently or what you would have liked to do differently and just do that next time.
Right. Like I totally agree with what you're saying. I hear that, and that's a part of why I'm feeling so down, and I'm in a dark place right now.
Sorry to hear that.
And a lot of that stems from me knowing that this sort of pain that I'm experiencing isn't the worst I've ever experienced, nor is it, like you said, an uncommon issue. So I don't know how to not guilt myself for feeling so worthless, because this is a problem that's so common. Like, it's like I should just be able to,
No, I'm not saying it's that simple. You still got to go through it. It's like that children's book, Going on a Bear Hunt. You can't go over it, can't go through it, or can't go around it, can't go under, or whatever it is. You got to go through it. Sometimes you just got to go through stuff. Liberty Jones from the chat says, focus on being more of the person that you're looking for is looking for. I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. I don't know if that's yours, Liberty Jones, or if that's something from a book you read, but that is beautiful. And I agree 100%. You're just going to have to feel those rotten things for a while. And those things will eventually, I'm a firm believer that negativity in life, not negativity, but like, the hard things in life bring out the good things in life. We wouldn't have a word for good unless there was a word for bad. And hard things in life bring out the best in us. That's what entropy is. I'm sure people are now sick of me referencing entropy in this chat, but like it's a real thing. Entropy's real. It's a resistance, and we overcome it every day. And that's the things that make us stronger. That's what exercising is. You're resisting entropy. Kind of. But like that sentiment helps me when I'm going through hard stuff. And it's true.
Right. Right. It is true. Like, I try to remain introspective and, like, I don't know if you do this. I don't know if anybody on this planet does this, but like with people like you who are right now, spending your beautiful limited time on this planet helping people with literally any problem that could be arise. You just pick a random number and you go in there and you help fix these things. And when I come in contact with people like that, I do this really weird thing where in order to make it feel like they're helping, sometimes I demean my own problem and like, yes, you did help, because I want them to feel like that they did, which you have. You actually have. I don't want to seem like that. This is just a tangent, but
Right.
I don't know, like with a therapist, for example, like I'll go to therapy and I want them to feel like they're doing a good job, and so I'll just lie and say that they are when really I'm stuck.
Well, you
I
got to
don't
be
know if
honest
that's
with your
something
counselor.
you do.
You got to be honest with your counselor. Sorry to cut you off, but like you're paying them. You got to
No, you're good.
you got to be honest
Right.
with them.
Right. Well,
And I know it's not anonymous like this, but they still have a legal obligation to keep your stuff private. It's not anonymous,
Right.
but you got to be honest with your counselor, otherwise you're wasting your money.
right. It's true. This has been really helpful. Just speaking to you and getting your advice, and I've noticed that when you get near to the end of a call like this one, and you ask, is there anything I can do to make this a better call or finish this call? And knowing that we've reached that point, I just want to ask how you're doing. Hope you're doing well. And
This isn't about me, but I'm well. I appreciate you asking. I am gonna open up these lines to other callers. There's a bunch of people in the chat who've I've seen hints of from stories, but I do want to. I'm not cutting you off. I do want to encourage you to please call back if you're still struggling with this in the future. Anytime.
No, I will. Thank you.
Thanks so much for
Keep doing
calling.
what you're doing. You're putting good into the world. You've
Thank
brought
you.
joy and smiles to so many people.
I'm not
We all
alone. I got a
appreciate
wonderful
you.
chat here. We're in this together. Thanks for calling in
And
tonight. Take care.
I'll be back in there to assist the next one.
Beautiful. We need you. Thanks so much. Offcore, I have removed you as moderator. I'm not sure if that was the right move or not. There's some controversy in the chat, and I'm not able to keep up with the chat as much as I'd like. I will go through the chat later and see what's going on. It's nothing personal. I don't know you, obviously. So I'm just trying to... we'll do the rest of this one without a moderator. Please, chat, be nice. Don't be idiots. Come on. We're trying to do some good stuff here. We're trying to give people a place to talk. If you're trolling, just leave, okay? Or I don't know, block yourself. I don't know. We will find better ways to moderate this. The chat is still useful even if there's some trolls, okay? We'll find some good ways to toast the trolls in text. We'll find a way to do that. So thanks for hanging in there with me. All right, we're going to open up these phone lines. We got about another hour left, so that should be a time to take at least 2 more calls, depending on what we run into. Thank you guys for hanging in there. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, hi. Sorry, the stream's a little behind.
What do you want to talk about?
Let me get my notes. So recently I've had a lot of stress in my body from trauma. I've been trying to learn more about cognitive dissonance and attachment style to better understand myself. But I just feel like even with all that effort, I've been struggling to enjoy life because I kind of fear losing the happiness that I might feel before it even comes to me. And I just feel like unable to put myself first. And I don't know how to do it without it feeling fake.
I apologize. I'm having a little bit of a problem hearing you. I did understand that you're wrestling with some either self-doubt or self-trust or authenticity issues. Can you elaborate or just I don't want to say recap because it sounds like there's a lot here. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I can be more like so specifically right now. I've been, sexually assaulted in the past, and a lot of stuff recently has come up to kind of trigger that. One of my close friends has had an experience like that, and I've wanted to be there for them, but I'm struggling with just like my body feels like it's a little bit out of my control, and I just have to constantly be riding out the kind of stress. Like the other day, I had a panic attack and couldn't stop crying for a while. Um, and like in that moment, I know it's going to be okay, but it's so like frustrating and demotivating.
So it's a self-control issue?
In a sense, yeah, it's not something that I think I can control. Maybe moderate, but yeah, like I don't hate myself. I just feel overwhelmed and kind of like fundamentally inadequate.
Can you tell me more about why you're struggling with feelings of inadequacy? Did you always feel this way, or was it something that sprung up recently? Yeah. Tell me more.
Yeah. So it's I guess it's been about 6 years now that I've had depression, which I don't want to spend too much time on it. But I say that I grew up in a very like a Christian family,
Okay.
fundamentalist. So I was taught that evolution wasn't true, and kind of everybody except that believe what I believe is just going to hell. And after like a year of struggling with that in high school, like my entire world broke because I realized that I didn't believe that. Uh, and so that obviously is a source of a lot of self-doubt because what I had taken for granted was, uh, and like what I was taught by the people that loved me, felt like a trick. And I felt like nothing could be trusted at all. And I've been slowly trying to put the pieces back together, but it's just a really long process and can be very disparaging.
So you've been depressed for 6 years, and you
Yes.
came from a religious house, and are you deconstructing religion? Is that what's going on?
I would say that I've definitely had that process. I kind of jumped into the philosophy and spirituality of it. I would say that I'm not against religion at all. More so just the fundamentalism aspect of it.
Right.
But I don't know. I feel like I like understand everything mentally to a certain extent, but I like not sure what to do to like my body is still processing. It feels like, um, and it just feeling a lot of stress where I'm sure it's coming from like that part, but I'm not sure what to do about it because I feel like I have a decent understanding of it now, mentally at least. At least I think so. I could be wrong. But I don't know how to help my body get through that trauma.
So letting go of fundamentalism is, in and of itself, a pretty serious thing to be doing. I would consider that some deconstruction for sure.
Yes, I have to agree.
It raises all kinds of questions. Is there heaven? Is there hell? Is there a God that gives me no privacy? Is there a God that cares if I eat certain things, depending on how fundamentalist you are? Is there a God that cares what I do on Sunday? Is there a God? These things are hard to let go of if you're raised in them.
It's very true, and that does kind of bring up another thing I've been thinking about is just like what my values are, and having to sift through what I've been taught to kind of pick out the because obviously some of the things I've been taught, like loving others, is very important, but other things I like don't agree with, like homophobia and that sort of thing, and then have to think about, well, what are my like opinions or beliefs about gender identity? How would I identify if I had been brought up in a world with less stigma, that sort of thing, and just like not, I feel like I can't trust myself.
Is it possible you don't trust yourself because of the fundamentalism you were raised in? I mean, we can go deep and talk about the extent of fundamentalism you were raised in if you think that would help. Sounds like maybe it was quite dense.
It did. If that's okay with you, I'm open to it.
Let's do it. Tell me about it.
I grew up uh, moving around quite a bit. I say every 4 to 6 years. During that time, I was changing schools as well, but not at the same time. And so I started in a more rural area, slowly moved towards the big city over the course of my entire childhood. And at the same time, my education became more secular in the sense that I started out in a private Christian school, kindergarten through third grade, fourth
Right.
grade. I was homeschooled for a little bit,
Okay.
which had a big impact. Then I started going to charter school and then public school finally, and what triggered my depression was after freshman year of high school. I like spent a lot of time like building a life and building connections and having really close friend groups, and then I had to move to a totally new place after that establishing year and move into a new setting where other people had already established their relationships, and the Christian community that I had felt belonging in eventually was very small, and I felt alienated, obviously. And a lot of the friends that I had would, smoke weed and use like curses and language that in my worldview, wasn't, right. It was sinful, but I
Right.
didn't want to judge them. It just like really hurt me to think that they had to go to hell for that. And so, like the cognitive dissonance between my beliefs and my behavior and all that really bubbled up because I had a curiosity of trying to smoke marijuana at some point. But the first time that I did, I was sexually assaulted, and that was incredibly terrifying. And kind of like
I'm so sorry to hear that.
still, yeah. And then 6 months later, I spent about a week as an inpatient in an adolescent mental health hospital, and that was really helpful for perspective to just get away from things.
Right.
And it was 3 months after that that I realized that like night before Easter that I didn't believe what I had been taught my entire life, and it felt like freeing in that moment. But it's such a huge shift from everything that I've been taught of and trusted my entire life that even years later, even though I've healed and am healing, still, yeah, it's just so much to unpack, I guess. And
Yeah.
maybe I'm just, frustrated by how long of a process it is, because it is, like I said, discouraging. Then, of course, everything since then there's been more trauma. Like I was sexually assaulted again, unfortunately, and I've had been in a pretty good relationship for a really long time, but there's a lot of conversation there as I learn more about myself, that I kind of going back to the like values of like learning about things like open relationships, for instance, and not knowing how to interpret my feelings and feeling guilty for feeling pleasure or just feeling like evil for even finding anybody else attractive is like something where I like know in my head it's like it's not evil, but I just like feel in the pit of my stomach that like it's wrong, which makes it really hard to just like let go and not be stressed.
Right.
Sorry, I know that's a lot.
Well, it is a lot. I want to start by saying that I completely resonate with what you're saying. You're not alone in growing up in a fundamentalist situation. Those situations are ridden with fear. That's what it's all propped up by, actually, is fear. A lot of people stay in those situations because of the fear. They can't get out of it because it's just like it's so ingrained into their head that, and I'm not going to weigh in on specific. You mentioned a lot of specifics. I'm going to try to keep this vague a little bit, or I'm going to try to keep this universal, I'll say, because there is a universal root that I think is responsible for this. You know, like that, a lot of fundamentalism is simply just trying to keep people afraid of specific acts. You know, like there are specific things that are off limits. Each brand of fundamentalism has their own things that are off limits. But each of these things in every version and flavor of fundamentalism is shrouded in this thing of fear, and church is serious because when you go into a church, you got to really trust the people that you're exposed to, because you are exposed. Church is a very vulnerable place, and I'm not telling people to go to church. I believe that in fact, I believe those types of gatherings, call it temple, mass, church, whatever you want to call it, are crucial to civilization. In fact, this is what Nietzsche talked about when he said, a lot of people misunderstood Nietzsche when he said, God is dead and we have killed him. Nietzsche didn't mean that people killed God. Nietzsche meant that, anybody who knows his work knows that he meant that society is propped up by values and agreements that we're not going to kill each other in our sleep, or we're not going to do each other wrong, and that these things are the virtues of religion. And without religion, without communities and things like this, and where people get together and share virtues, a civilization is impossible. And Nietzsche feared that we were losing those virtues. So I'm very much a believer that communal gatherings of any kind that are where the goal is to have a common sense of purpose and virtue, these are good things. But fundamentalism, in all of its forms, is a very different beast. This is like it's like the antithesis of virtue. It's like a fear thing. It's like we're going to keep you trapped through fear. And I don't honestly know. I'm not claiming that that fundamentalists actually set out to do this. I believe a lot of fundamentalists. In fact, I know from experience that at least many fundamentalists believe these things that they teach, and I think that's what makes it so difficult, is that for people like you who've been through some serious trauma, and your case is really specific and extreme, because it sounds like your life was pretty comfortable. Like you were pretty comfortable in your religion. I don't know. I think you mentioned Christianity. I'm not sure what religion or denomination you subscribed to, but it sounds like it was pretty comfortable for you for a long time. It sounds like you really subscribed to these things, and it doesn't sound like you experienced much trauma until you got on the other side of these things and started asking, started opening yourself up to a more, you became more open-minded. And is it possible that you associate these traumas with this newfound open-mindedness you've discovered?
Sorry, can I just give me a moment to take that in, please?
Yeah, take your time.
You said, is it possible that I'm associating the trauma with the newfound open-mindedness?
Yeah, like maybe is it possible that your body is signaling to you that none of these bad things would have happened to you if you had just stayed in the fold?
I think there is some, maybe kernel of truth there, where because so much of my upbringing was, like you said, based on fear and wanting to do the right thing, but really just not wanting to do the wrong thing.
Right.
That now that I don't know, and I don't have that like objectivity to kind of justify myself, I feel kind of just like uncertain. And anytime I do try something new, the I don't know how to put it into words. Like self exploration and expanding myself feels like, in one sense, I guess, like turning my back on my family, and kind of and this at the same time, uh, doing something that I shouldn't be doing. I don't and like like I don't think there's like anything wrong with self exploration in a healthy way, and like being respectful, but it's, I guess, still internalized somehow.
From hearing you talk, I would guess that you're a person that really cares about fairness. You consider yourself a fair person, and that you wouldn't have stepped out of what you were raised in unless you cared, unless fairness was and honesty was some kind of a virtue for you, some kind of a pillar.
Yes, like transparency and authenticity. I've definitely brushed up against a lot when trying to reevaluate what matters most to me, and having that like real, honest connection. It's like truth in general is a big thing, especially after the fact, to have everything collapse, uh, and starting from like absolutely nothing and trying to figure out from there. Like there was a period where I just doubted like reality at all, and I've slowly been able to kind of ground myself in the experiences of what I like feel and perceive in this life. But I've been really slow and cautious in building upon that, because I guess I'm terrified of being wrong again. I don't want to go through that process again of losing everything, similar to how I lost like, my friend groups and social ecosystems while moving around so much. It's hard to like, restart, I guess.
Yeah.
Like the loss just I feel it very strongly.
You're going through one of the hardest things a human can go through. That's serious. That's super serious what you're going through. You just said you don't want to be wrong again. What does that mean?
That's a good question. It's maybe it means that the fear that I had previously has been repositioned into kind of a more, I don't know, like nebulous and hard to define thing, where I I want to know truth, but at the same time I don't think it's possible to have like an absolute truth, or that truth is subjective in at least some practical sense. But yeah, I making me think of like putting others before myself and not valuing my beliefs or opinions or feelings and sticking up for myself and being assertive. I'm very shy, I would say, and careful not to overstep because I've been journaling about this, or I've tried to be, and I kind of feel like I equate like self-care with selfishness.
That is not selfishness. Actually, we could dive into that a little bit more. It actually is kind of selfishness, but we need selfishness. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, but you just hit something that I've brushed up with this too. I'm resonating with a lot of what you're saying. I too was raised in some fundamentalism. A little bit of selfishness is necessary to survive. Our reptilian brain keeps us alive every day. If you get your reptilian brain, and you got your mammal brain, and you got your prefrontal cortex, each three developmental evolutionary parts of your brain are doing different things. They're giving you different signals in any given situation. And your reptilian brain keeps you alive. Your reptilian brain tells you to eat, tells you to have sex, it tells you not to walk out in front of oncoming traffic, tells you to be scared of heights. For some people, they're scared of heights. That's all your reptilian brain. It's keeping you alive. Your reptilian brain is necessary to survive. If you didn't have that, you would walk out in front of oncoming traffic and not think twice. You wouldn't eat. You wouldn't procreate. So a little bit of selfishness goes a long way in keeping you alive. It's necessary. And that was a really hard thing for me, finding that balance of like, well, how much is too much? Because it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope between self-care and selfishness, and that's what I hear you saying.
Yeah, and it's like setting those boundaries myself as opposed to having some book or authority tell me the boundaries for me, and being able to trust that unconditionally is difficult. I know you don't want to make this about you, but in your experience, did you have any like in that like self-care and selfishness kind of thing? Was there anything that you could do in that maybe helped a little bit? Because I feel like I feel like I'm very good, at least at like thinking about things abstractly, but it's difficult for me to bring them down to a concrete reality sometimes.
How old are you?
I just turned 23 not too long ago.
Okay. Yeah, I was around the same age. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be you. We're going to have very different experiences, even if we both grew up in some fundamentalism. But for me, it was I had to really work hard. I had to really dig deep to become comfortable with taking care of myself, with doing things that were healthy for me. That was one of the hardest things I've ever overcome, was exactly what you're talking about. For me, the harder thing was the virtue side of things. Like, I was so raised with this sense that certain things were right in and of themselves and certain things were wrong in and of themselves, which that ideology just clearly falls apart very quickly.
Right.
It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much analyzing to realize that just doesn't make sense. Like
the self-evident kind of claims.
Right. And so for me, it was more the like heaven and hell thing that really freaked me out. Like what things are right and what things are wrong. For me, diving the selfishness thing was a little easier once I did some research on the structure of the brain. And I'm not a neurologist. I'm going to be very clear about that. I'm not a brain scientist. I know only what I've spent a long time reading about, and I've read many books on this stuff. So I know some stuff, which is mostly what I've already regurgitated to you about reptilian brain, mammal brain, prefrontal cortex. That to me, knowing that stuff to me, it did like 80% of the work. Once I read that, I was like, oh, I get it. Like at any given situation, I can be selfish. I can think like a reptile, and reptiles eat their kids when they're hungry. They don't even think about it. In any given situation, I can act like a reptile. I can act like a mammal, or I can. And you got this prefrontal cortex as a human, and there's like a dozen or so animals that have a slight, a prefrontal cortex as well, but theirs are not as developed as the humans. So, a human doesn't only have a mammal brain conflicting with a reptile brain, and the mammal brain's telling you to collaborate and be friendly and cooperative and, maybe even self-sacrificing in certain situations. But you got this prefrontal cortex that like messes the whole thing up as a human, because you're like, now you're conflicted. Now you've got this like, it's not just two impulses. Now you're aware of the two impulses, and you got to make a decision. And for some reason, maybe we're different, but for me, knowing that and learning that did like 80% of the work for me, and it just unlocked a lot. For me, the harder thing was getting past like the virtues and the values of the brand of fundamentalism I was raised in. That to me was really scary, of like coming to grips with like, I was like terrified for years. Maybe like 10 years. I was terrified. I was really entrenched in it growing up. It took a lot of time for me to get past the idea that certain things in and of themselves were right and wrong. So it doesn't sound like that's what you're dealing with. So I don't know how much my personal experience will be helpful to you, but it sounds like you're dealing with this selfishness thing, and I hope that I don't know what you need. I want to hear you talk more. What's going to make this a good call for you?
That is an excellent question. Part of it is just reassurance. I know that I've been tuning in as much as I can to these anonymous lives, and just having the community aspect of it has been very insightful. Hearing you talk about the kind of like the biology behind it, and the like awareness of that help you at least process it in your unique way, resonates a little bit with me. I feel like I maybe lean more towards the psychological side more so than the biological side, but that I do see the parallels there. It's just tough. Just I don't know. There's just so much. It's hard to kind of narrow it down into one thing that would, help in a certain sense, because it can, like, I'm trying to keep it one step at a time and do that, but it's difficult. That when and I'm very privileged in that I have friends that like love and support me, and my family still loves me, even though I don't feel understood at all. But it's hard for me to feel loved when people aren't in front of me. Kind of like emotional permanence is really difficult. Just feeling like I can feel connected to someone when they're in front of me, but as soon as they leave, it's like my stomach drops, and I feel like it's alone.
What do you mean when they leave? I'm trying to understand that. When who leaves?
Like if I'm spending time with a friend, like at their house, or they're visiting me, right, and then that time comes to a close, even if it's just for the day.
I see.
They could leave, and then maybe an hour later, I feel, I guess it feels a little hyperbolic to say nothing, but it really does feel like the love that I felt from them earlier, which I believe they do love me, but it's I don't feel it. I feel cold and kind of disconnected, and I feel like it's a little bit more different than just clinginess. I think it's something unsettling about being by myself and having to
Okay.
make my own decisions.
Right. It sounds like this was really beat into you as a kid. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it kind of, I guess it loops back to the assertiveness of it. And I would say that it was beat into me, or just, I've kind of come to realize that the closer you are to childhood, the more education kind of functions as indoctrination. But I spent not only time in like private Christian school at a young age, I spent time in, VBS, church, church mornings, Sunday nights, Wednesdays through a youth program, to like Bible camp for a week every like 6 or 7 years straight. I was like completely engulfed in the bubble, and the world as I understood it was completely coherent within that until it started to expand a little bit. So maybe I associate that, like, expanding myself now and self-exploration, thinking that this is the last time myself, expanded in that way, is when I realized my worldview, I didn't believe it anymore, which goes back to fearing of being wrong again.
Well, it sounds like you've been through a lot of abandonment through relationships, through this deconversion. It sounds like a lot of your social circle was disrupted by you leaving the fold. It also doesn't sound like you've completely let go of your religion. You're just really not going to subscribe to this, at the very least, this fundamentalist stuff that you were raised with. And that it can be enough to alienate you from previous friendships that were propped up by that fundamentalism. I mean, that's exactly what Nietzsche was talking about when we were, covering that earlier. Like that's exactly what he meant when he, he's talking about exactly what you're going through. And so when you tell me that you feel this sense of dread when you're an hour or so after your friend leaves, I wonder if it has something. It sounds connected to me. That maybe you're just scared that maybe it feels like the last time you'll see that person or something, potentially, or you're traumatized by these people walking out of your life. I could certainly relate with that. That's horrifying.
Yes. Yeah. The fear of being wrong kind of relates to picking up religion or spirituality again. And that, like, I don't have like much against religion. Like I said before, I do try to embrace spirituality, but I'm always hesitant about it because of my first instance of it was something that I perceived to be deceitful. Thank you for talking. I know it's hard to kind of reach a conclusion with this, but I appreciate you listening and sharing a little bit about your experience and thoughts.
Do you mind if I prod you with a couple more questions?
Of course.
Because I feel for you.
Yeah.
Do you trust yourself? Have you made it to that point yet where you can feel like, it sounds like you don't. Sounds like
I think I'm still learning what it means to trust myself, because I have made mistakes in the past that I would say that I know are wrong, or there's things that I nitpick about myself, which it's hard to know the line sometimes between what's being constructively kind of unpacking my behavior or thoughts and kind of figuring out what areas for improvement and what's just negativity and feeling down about myself.
Right.
Because it's hard to see through that with the depression sometimes. Do I trust myself? Sometimes maybe, definitely not all the time, and it's really hard to trust myself around other people, specifically in relating to my feelings and like asserting myself in that space. No matter how much I trust the person, I can always be paranoid a little bit that I'm being too pushy, even though I'm like barely asserting myself in that situation. The feeling doesn't really match the outward perception, at least I'm pretty sure. But being aware of that doesn't change the feeling. There's the initial feeling itself, and then there's the feelings, perceptions, emotions in relation to that. And I can be okay with the negative feeling and not like kind of spiral into the suicidal sort of headspace anymore. I've learned how to deal with that, but
Good.
the feeling itself is still there, and that's what's so frustrating and annoying.
Well, let's first celebrate that.
overwhelming.
Let's first celebrate that. You got to give
Yeah.
yourself props that you've made it past the suicide thing. A lot of people don't make it past the suicide thing when deconstructing something like you're deconstructing. So you've already made a huge leap. So let's at least acknowledge that, and I wanna hear it from you in some
Sure
way
thing.
that
Yeah.
you know that that's a good thing. I don't know. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I want to know that you know that's a good thing.
Thank you for reminding me. I guess it's the negativity bias and focusing on what I haven't done, but that is very true. I don't just give myself enough credit for still being here and realizing the extent to which my trauma is different from other people. And I don't like comparing it at all. That's not what I'm trying to do, but it's easy sometimes to forget that we've all had different lives and different things to hold us back or push us forward.
Right.
Um,
And then separately, you're in this bowl of spaghetti right now. You have made mistakes, it sounds like. I don't know what specifically they are, but I mean, everybody makes mistakes, so to hear you say you've made some doesn't surprise me. But you're in this bowl of spaghetti because you've experienced some very real trauma. You said you were sexually assaulted. For those who are just joining us, we're talking to a caller who has been deconstructing some fundamentalism and is in a place where they're trying to not throw baby out with the bathwater in their entire worldview or operating system or whatever you want to call it, and yet they cannot continue their life with the brand of fundamentalism they were raised with, and now they're experiencing some self-doubt issues. They're trying to find a sense of self-trust and also just find their way in the world, which can be in my opinion, it's got to be one of the most confusing things someone can go through. And they've lost a lot of dear friends, and there's a lot of social anxiety that has come along with that. These are very heavy things that people go through when they're doing something like this. And so we're taking our time with this caller to try to make this a useful call in some way. And I was just telling you that you're in this bowl of spaghetti because you're aware of the mistakes you've made, and you've experienced some very real trauma in your life. And at the same time, you're deconstructing a religion, which is, those are three huge things to be coming to grips with. The mistakes you've made can be heavy enough on their own. Being sexually assaulted is heavy enough on its own. Deconstructing a religion and all the things that come along with that, including a disruption of a social circle, maybe disapproving family members, that can be extremely isolating. My heart goes out to you because I'm not alone in that either, and I know you know you're not alone. You've called in here tonight, so I get the sense that you know you're not alone. But I know so many people who've gone through this, and it's a really traumatic thing to lose people to religion because of religion. And you're in this bowl of spaghetti, and I just want to make sure that you're not confusing or conflating the outcomes of one action from another. Like, you weren't sexually assaulted because you left your religion, for example, or you aren't stepping away from your religion because you've made mistakes in your past. Doesn't sound like you're stepping away from your religion, but the fundamentalism. Are you aware of that, or do you feel like maybe you're you said you have some self-trust issues and that you're doubting yourself. Do you feel like maybe you're conflating issues, maybe?
I think that's a very important perspective that I probably do overlook often, which I can recognize is easy to do because so much of it is complex. It kind of goes from being such an overwhelming experience of emotions that I actually, become numb to it and it all feels the same and kind of becomes, I don't know, like a metaphor that I sometimes think about is like tinnitus, where there's like a constant ringing of trauma in my life, and sometimes it's, so loud that it's the only thing I can hear, and sometimes it's quiet, but it's still there, and I might forget about it, but if I tune in, I can still kind of hear that ringing and that discomfort. So at least in that experiential aspect, it does feel like one particular thing, but thinking about it like that, like you were saying, probably is limiting in a way that it doesn't necessarily have to be. So like separating the parts, like maybe just like just deconstructing more before I worry about constructing again, just to kind of get a sense of the details of all the different parts, and guess getting the best understanding of myself as I can without trying to wash and taking it as it is. I think that's what I'm kind of taking away from this right now.
Towards the beginning of the call, we were talking about, I asked you if, I can't remember the context for this question, but I was sensing from you that you were really, this was coming from a place of virtue for you, that you were deconstructing these things. And I could tell you were, I remember it was because you sounded really conflicted. You were saying you didn't know if you were doing the right thing and you were really scared. And I sensed I was talking to a really brutally open-minded person, brutal to the extent that you would be hard on yourself for even having a thought like that. And here you are, a person who's not even throwing baby out with the bathwater. You mentioned you still want to maintain some sense of your worldview while just letting go of the fundamentalism stuff. I'm just thinking like this bowl of spaghetti just keeps getting bigger the more and more I think about this conversation, because you've got that going on, which, and I'm sensing some fear. You mentioned that there was some you sound really afraid, and you mentioned that, you've mentioned fear a couple of times in what you were raised with. And also you mentioned you were 23 years old. So that's another spaghetti strand that, 23 is a natural time to be deconstructing things, not just religion or fundamentalism. That's the age where we are kind of auditing the operating system we've been raised with in general and trying to decide what's going to make it into our adult lives from our childhood, and what's not going to make it. And so this bowl of spaghetti you're in is just massive. You're already at a point in time in life where people are doing this kind of thing, but you have the massive task of also doing it with the fundamentalism you were raised with, which sounds like it was pretty extreme, and also the loss of several close relationships, and also there's just a huge laundry list here, and so I can hear it in your voice, like this is a lot for you, and my heart's breaking for you. I don't know what you need, but I do believe there's hope for you. You're clearly a very intelligent person who's really wrestling with this. You're not one of these to quote a book we might both know very well. You don't seem like a lukewarm kind of person to me. You sound like somebody who is very convicted about your beliefs and your values, and you're not going to let go of them easily. You have this tenacity, I can tell. I also feel like you may be conflicted about that tenacity, and you might not be sure what to follow. You seem kind of lost, like you don't know. Yeah, I just sense like maybe you're afraid. And I just want to give you hope that you're in a huge bowl of spaghetti, and you can get out you can get out of it. People make it out of this. Do you have a counselor? Do you have somebody that there's a lot of great religious. There's a lot of great counselors who specialize in religion. In fact, there's a great one, Marlene Winnell, who has written some books. She's a PhD psychologist. In fact, she discovered RPTSD, I believe it's called, which is the religious subsect of PTSD. And a lot of people who were raised in fundamentalism come out with it with a flavor of RPTSD. And Marlene is now a counselor who walks with people such as yourself and does an amazing job, has a million amazing recovery stories. Are you familiar with her? Have you read her books?
I have not. This is actually the first time. I obviously know of PTSD. I have some friends with it, but I have not heard of our PTSD yet. So that is very interesting to me.
Make a note of Marlene
thank you
Winnell. She might be a huge resource for you.
Yeah, I'm going to write that down.
She has a book called Leaving the Fold.
Leaving the Fold.
And she does one-on-one counseling, and she also has these retreats that she does, and she's in California. She's amazing. And she discovered RPTSD. She grew up in a fundamentalist situation. Her work's incredible. Highly recommend you check her out. But there have been a handful of callers so far that have just really gotten to me, and you are one of them, because it is so, it's taking me back to my early 20s, and it's taking.
May I ask how old you are now?
I'll be 35 next month.
Okay. Yeah.
There is hope for you, and you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It can look a million different ways. There's people that come out of those kinds of situations and still hang on to their religion, and that can be that proves to be a very rewarding thing for some people. Some people let go of all of it. Some people change religions. I don't believe that any one of these is like what one must do. I think that we are all on very different journeys, and so I'm really holding back. It's actually taking everything within me on this call in particular to not say very specific things besides read Marlene Winnell. I just want to tell you, you are going to get out of this. I'm just going to say that because I believe you will. I can hear it in your voice. You're a very intelligent person. You think about things. You mull them over. You don't make quick decisions. You're not impulsive. I don't feel like I'm talking to an impulsive person. You're very collected. You've been speaking very quietly the entire night. You seem very restrained. Dare I say subdued. It sounds like maybe you're really, I can hear that you're wrestling with this. I'm not talking to someone who is out of their mind. I can tell that just from talking to you. And I want to tell you, you are going to find your way. And I don't know if this has been helpful at all, but I just wish I could just, I wish I could do so many things.
Thank you so much for saying that. You have no idea how much that means to me. It's giving me much to think about, which is, I think, the most valuable thing you could do, because it's so hard sometimes to just get out of my own head. and you know, and like in a healthy way, just like distance myself from things and put them in perspective. And I feel like this conversation has just helped me. Just like hearing you kind of say my words back to me and including your own thoughts has really, yeah, just given me much to think about. And I'm really appreciative for the questions that you've asked and the kind of responses that you've given. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for calling in tonight. It's been encouraging for me to hear your story. I hope it seems like it's been very helpful for certain people in the chat too. The chat's been lighting up. Promise me you're going to go back and read the chat after we're done at some point and just see the love that you're getting. And also there's probably several good ideas in there that may or may not resonate with you.
Yeah, I couldn't keep up with the chat, but from what I saw, I was very grateful for what everyone was kind of saying. Yeah, I'm glad I called in and that I could get through. I wasn't sure if I would, but I was surprised. I'm really glad that this conversation could happen. I'm just so grateful.
I'm grateful too. I'm so grateful you called in. Much love to you, and I wish you the best on your journey of recovery, and I hope you love Marlene Winnell as much as I did.
Yeah, I'm excited to check it out. And just another thing I'm grateful for, just real quick, is just you taking your time with this, because I do feel a little guilty about taking time away from others. I know.
Don't feel guilty. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
You weren't toasted. There was a decent amount of toast happening tonight.
Yeah, no permanent toast for me.
No permanent toast for this guy. I'm so glad you called in. Call back anytime.
All right, thank you so much.
Take care. All right, guys, we're gonna do one more because tonight was an odd night. We were holding up the beginning of this episode for that first caller who was calling internationally and we kept losing them. So I want to make sure we get there. I know there's people in the chat saying they've been trying for a long time to get in. And so we're going to do one more and see what happens. Let's see here. There's some chat happening that I need to check out. Yeah, it's a good idea, off-core. I'll consider that. I'm really careful about this real estate on the screen. I don't want to just add a bunch of text to the screen because people are already not really reading this disclaimer as it is. There's a lot of people still calling in and getting toasted. But it's a good thought. I'll consider that. Okay, so I'm going to open up these phone lines. Stand by. Bear with me. And this will be the last call for the night once we do this. Hi, thanks for calling.
Hi.
What you want to talk about?
Okay, just as a reference.
Can you turn your speakers off?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Hi. As reference, I'm a graduate student who's very just burnt out, very burnt out. And it's just, I just feel like it's so overwhelming pressure on me, and I feel like, I have 1 year left in the program, and, you try to keep validating yourself that you're in here for a reason, you're smart enough to get into this program, and now it's just been super difficult to keep up with the program, and I just feel like getting imposter syndrome, if you know what that is. It's just the syndrome for people in the chat. It's more so like you don't kind of believe that, man, I've been trying to describe it, but it's more just you're trying to define you're trying to fulfill this role and you don't feel like you feel like you're an imposter. And as another added reference, I'm in the healthcare industry, and it's suffering right now.
Right.
And I even question my own role working in the healthcare industry. I used to be super, super passionate. I mean, I still am about the role I'm fulfilling, but now I'm in the system and seeing how healthcare at the end of the day is unfortunately a business, and I hate that it's a business at the end of the day. And a lot of big healthcare systems are looking for profit, and a lot of
Right.
these, sometimes it's just I feel like patients are kind of just being cast aside, and healthcare workers are so burnt out, and so many of them are leaving the profession, even those who've been in it for years and years and years, and now there's so many new grads trying to fulfill those roles, but have no mentors to look up to because all those mentors, all those people who are trying to teach them are leaving the profession. And it just leaves me kind of hopeless almost. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, but it just makes me question, like, do I even, like, job outlook? Do I even do this? Do I keep going? Granted, half of me is more so you should keep doing this, but also I'm in a very accelerated program, and on top of that, I have other exponential things. I'm in a long-distance relationship. I'm like the first in my family to be going for higher education, and also kind of I'm on the other side of the country. My family's not here, and it's so many different factors weighing on me. And I think just in one short term, I feel overwhelmed, burnt out, uneasy.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of resonance in the chat, so you're definitely not alone. There's even some love for people in healthcare going out in the chat. And I would have to agree that with that love going out in the chat to healthcare workers, I think now more than ever we need good people in those seats making decisions. I also agree with what you're saying. It's really rough time for healthcare. It's definitely been overrun by the whole for-profit thing. But, what are you going to do? Like, the hospital's got to make money. Obviously, that's going to get political real quick, so we're not going to go there. But
No, yeah, no need to.
right. But do you live in the States? Actually, wait, hang on. That's anonymous enough. That's anonymous. Don't tell me any more specific. But it's relevant to the question, because if you live in the States, to some extent, you have to be at least accepting of the fact that it is a capitalist country, and that pretty much everything we do here and anything we're going to study in school is going to be, in the effort of making capital. And so that's unavoidable no matter what you're studying. But, again, I'll just say again what I said at the beginning, which is that, we, now more than ever, we need good people in those seats with convictions like it sounds like you have, making decisions. So isn't now the best time to be doing the work you're doing and trying to make it to those seats?
Definitely correct. There is like a space, like there is a niche. There's definitely a spot. I see so many job postings for healthcare professions, and also just so many spots that need to be filled. The problem is that now talk about the pandemic a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Post-pandemic, a lot of floors, at least I'm seeing it in the place I work at now, big industry, very, try not to reveal too much, but it's just a lot of times, a lot of floors is what I'm seeing. I don't know if this is everywhere else, but they're not taking time to even debrief about like what even happened during the pandemic, that there's so many nurses, even nurses who or even doctors, PAs, anyone, any healthcare professional who started during the pandemic have been so burnt out. And a lot of times I've seen admin and people in those higher up positions who it's their job to really manage these floors. They have not spent the time or the effort to even debrief from all of that. And a
Right.
lot of times they kind of just flipped in like a snap back to whatever schedule or whatever um like trying to do what they're trying to do pre-COVID. And it's really sad because there are nurses who and doctors or even PAs who have walked away from the profession, and they've been doing it for 30 plus years and they loved it, but then ever since this happened and seeing how places have mistreated them, they've kind of stepped away from the profession. And granted, personally, like I still feel the need to help people out. Like I want to be that person that they can trust, but it's so hard when there are a lot of new people going to healthcare professions, and then those people who are just who've been there and so long have gotten tired of it and are like, I'm done.
Right.
I can't do this anymore. So it just like leaves me to question. I mean, I have a year left, and I know I want to keep doing it, but I feel like the thoughts of not believing in yourself and just being like you don't belong and just feeling like you're not enough, because who's going to be able to teach you once you graduate if there's so many people leaving these professions? But who's going to help you build up to that person that you want to be able to help all these people who are definitely not getting any. I mean, people are getting sicker and sicker. I mean, there's always going to be job outlook for that. People have not yet had the cure for cancer or anything like that, but it's just, I don't know. I mean, I try not to think too much of it because then I just dig yourself a huge rabbit hole. And
Right. Well, the people
um,
leaving the people leaving the profession who've been in it for 30 plus years, I kind of get, because we're in a crazy time, and a lot of those people probably can afford to retire anyway if they've been doing it for that long. I'm sure there's cases of people who've been in it less time quitting too, but someone in your position who's been, it sounds like you're going to be fresh on the field soon. We need people like you in those seats more than we need the people who've been there for 30 years, in my opinion. That might be a hot take, but I believe that. We need fresh perspectives. We need young energy. We need people who are rip-roaring, ready to go in those seats now more than ever, especially because of COVID and things like that. And also because of how controversial healthcare in the States is becoming. What do you, you mentioned you were burned out. Is it two different things going on? Is it that you're burned out and you're seeing all these people quitting and you're wondering if...
Okay. I would say it's two main issues. I'm burned out from seeing other healthcare professionals burned out. It's kind of like an atmosphere, super contagious. I used to work in an area where we were always short-staffed.
Right.
And it created unsafe care ratios. And of course, are you familiar with the Redonda case that just came out?
Jog my memory. I don't read the news at all, so I apologize in advance for how under a rock I am.
If anything, that's probably a good thing.
Okay.
In some respect. But the Redonda case, basically, this healthcare professional nurse, she made a medical error, and and the system, in my opinion, did not back her. And made a medical error in which she misread a medication and mistaken it for even more dangerous medication that caused the patient to die, unfortunately. And she was taken, this happened years ago, but it just came onto trial and it came to a verdict that she was guilty. I mean, rightfully so, her license was taken away.
Right.
But also, she got a prison sentence. I think from what I heard is that she got a prison sentence of basically the same as if it was like a homicide.
Okay.
And that worries me just in addition, just because the system is supposed to the system is supposed to prevent stuff like this from happening. I mean, yes, we're all human. We make errors, and during just that, I mean, I can go into the case more, but I feel like it's there's so many intricate details. But
I
in
get
the
the
short
point.
term, this nurse made an error, and all the other people in the system were not accountable. The other people involved, the system didn't report on that medical error right away. So little things like that. And that just also makes me worried for the profession in general, that the system isn't supporting. Again, I know you said that it's a for-profit here because we do live in the capitalist country, but also that's one issue. Other issues that I have 1 year left in the program. I'm so burnt out. I've talked with advisors at my school and questioned whether or not I should keep doing this because I'm in a long distance relationship. I've been with this person, my partner, for like 5 years. It's been up and down. And then 2, I'm away from my family. I'm the only one really out here. I moved, kind of uprooted myself, moved across the country to somewhere I know no one. Granted, I have friends now, but it's just my mind still lingers back to getting just anxious, and I'm still coming from a very different culture, very different place, and moving to a very different area. Into this program is been so accelerated. I feel like my mind runs miles of minutes, and I just feel like I can't fit anything else in my brain from just studying and studying and studying. I mean, granted, I know other schools, other programs are like this, but I feel like I'm drowning, and I'm like having a gasp of air here and there, but it's sometimes I just keep drowning and drowning and drowning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I've never stepped foot into a college classroom, so I can only barely relate to your specific experience. No less that you're in grad school, and I can only imagine what that must be like for you, especially in these crazy times. But I will say that I know from my personal experience and also from the experience of some of these callers we've been taking that the feeling of being burned out is very relatable right now because of what the world is under. And I know that the healthcare, I'm not trying to exclude obviously the healthcare system is specifically being taxed by everything that's going on in the world right now in some pretty crazy ways. But I think that, I guess what I'm hoping for is that we can, is that you can get to a place where you can see the burning out thing separate from the other stuff you mentioned, because I feel like you're a really well-spoken, it sounds like you're well-trained, and it also seems like you've got a lot of convictions about this line of work. And so I would hate to lose someone like that to a field where new, fresh ideas are so needed. I mean, like, I'm just talking to you thinking like, my gosh, like this person has to please don't give up on us. You know, like,
I appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, it's, and unfortunately, it's not just me. What sucks is that, like, I'm feeling this way, but then a whole bunch of people in my cohort are also feeling this way. And I feel like
right.
I'm, like, trying to reach for validation, self-validation, that, like, I'm doing this for the right reasons. And then sometimes whenever I reach out, it's like, oh, I feel the same way. I mean, you can almost think, like, oh, I'm in the same boat, it'll be okay. But then at the same time, it's like, well, I don't like to think of it as dependent, but it's like I feel like I'm subconsciously looking for someone to just pull me out and be like, hey, look, like you're doing okay. This is what you need to do. But, you know, it's easier said than done. It's self-validation only goes so far.
Right.
And I'm just sorry. I'm also looking at the chat. Do you mind if I address something in the chat, or should I just
Go for it. I'm actually waiting to address something from it too. I'm wondering if we're looking at the same thing.
So Redonda case. So the case was that, one, I think someone said it's the precedent that it sets for that profession in general. The fact that everything was kind of blamed on this one person. Yes, she made a mistake, and yes, it cost her license, but also there are other things, like, for example, this medication, she didn't get to scan it until she was at a different level of the hospital in which the system was down. The system meaning like the electronic medical record system. I know you can look it up more, but it's in terms of like, yes, she missed all the stops and all of the warning flag signs that the system gave, but the procedure that patient was going down for and the medication that was needed, it was more like she had to scan it in a different place and give it to them at that right moment because they were on the way to the procedure, and like other professionals didn't say anything. The system was down, and just all these other things weren't put into place to even further ensure the safety of it. Yeah. But granted, yes, made a mistake. I just didn't think that it granted like a prison sentence of this much because
well, let's not get political. I want to interject here. Let's not
right,
not, or not. It's not political, but
No.
I don't want to get in the weeds on this. We can ignore the chat on this this whole tangent. I think
okay.
I'm curious. I'm worried about you. I'm not worried about you. I'm concerned about you, and I want to make sure that you don't give up on us. Please, for the love of God, don't give up on us.
No, I keep telling. I mean, it's just I have a whiteboard that sits next to my desk, and it's top to bottom full of stuff to do. I have files in 2 weeks, and I had to speak with the professor saying like, hey, this class isn't being taught correctly. Like, this needs to be spread out more. This final has
Right.
too dense of information. And then they just said, yeah, you're right. And they kind of just steady. Like, what the heck? Like, I'm so burnt out. And two, this is an accelerated program. I feel like I'm running on one of those free run treadmills, and I'm barely getting my footing. But the one thread I'm hanging on to is that there's still like people in my life who are in this profession, are still trudging through, but I think it's just I'm failing to see how can so many people be leaving this profession at this time. And I know it's due to the pandemic, and I know it's due to a lot of things, but it's just been a rough road. School, then seeing how this profession is evolving post-pandemic, and just, I don't know. This is like, I feel like I'm the person below. I'm like Atlas holding the world above me, and it's just like it's gonna fall down and stuff. And yeah.
I want to highlight something from the chat I've seen about a dozen times at least. And it sounds like you've got a lot on your plate, so this might not even be in the cards, but can you afford a vacation right now? I don't even mean just financially, like with time.
I wish I could. I'm trying to pay for my apartment here. I'm also on student loans.
Right.
And the work and doing the work helps pay the bills.
Right.
I do have one scheduled up in like 2 months or so for like a weekend. So I'm hoping I'm
Good.
like counting down the days towards that. But it's just there are times where I just feel super low, and like I would try to reach out for mental health options and resources, and sometimes it's just like I've been on this waiting list for therapy for so long. And granted, I know there are other short-term offers, but I've been looking for like a long-term solution that my work insurance will accept. And unfortunately, I've been on this like wait list for a long time.
Right.
So it's not like I'm neglecting resources. It's just I'm kind of like in limbo, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
You are fighting the good fight. I want to thank you. I mean, I'm not just being a jokester when I say that. Like I want to acknowledge and make sure you feel seen for fighting this good fight. Like, we need you. Don't give up on us. Like, I mean, like, you got to take care of yourself at the same time. I don't know what the solution is. It sounds like you've got a vacation planned. I think that's great. I do agree with the chat that some time for yourself and whatever sliver of time you can find it in would be so helpful. Like I mentioned, I've never been to, never been through any college, much less grad school. But I do understand going long stretches of time without vacations. I've got 3 kids and I run a business, and I'm finding time for vacations and things to get away is very difficult for some people. And so I just wanna acknowledge you and just like surround you in all the love we can here between myself and the chat, because like you've got to find a way to take care of yourself and do this impossible task of getting through grad school during this crazy pandemic, and also somehow hopefully influence our whole healthcare system for the better. Like, that's a tall order, I know, but like, maybe just try to see it one step at a time, like I imagine that on the trajectory you're on, it's hard not to see the full picture. And like sometimes in life we're just crawling through a straw, one tiny little squeeze at a time. And sometimes it's hard to find that break. And I'm not trying to act like I know what it's like to be in your scenario, because I absolutely don't. And I'm trying to be very clear about that. But I do think that...
No, but I appreciate the empathy. So
yeah.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people are in that that they're squeezing through that straw right now because of the state of the world. But all the more reason we need people like you who have real convictions and a real, like I sense that you really care. I doubt that at least many of the professionals you mentioned earlier who are leaving in droves care as much as you care. Sounds like you really care a hell of a lot. And that says a lot about you.
No, thank you. I don't doubt that they don't care. It's just hard when you go to work and then people look up to you to advocate for them and to know what they need. And even though these patients are at their lowest of low, and it's left up to I and other healthcare professionals to really bring them up and bring them out of whatever they're doing. And a lot of times it's just that can be a daunting task. And coming into this profession, it's often, I mean, it's an enormous task. I mean, I feel a calling to it. I'm excited to be. I'm just trying to mentally get through it with all the help I can get.
Have you tried meditation?
I've tried mindfulness, and that works, but then I find myself going back into the loophole once I come out of it, just because, I mean, now I'm even questioning if I should have this whiteboard up, because it's kind of like an actual solidified reminder, but then I always forget everything in terms of stuff to do just because it's so much. And I even have like a Google Calendar that was set up that's super color coded of where I need to be, tell me when to breathe, tell me when to brush my teeth, tell me. I mean, that's exaggerated, but it's just, it's a battle, but it's a tug of war back and forth. And so far, I think the rope's just in the middle, and I haven't toppled over just yet. But
I see. So you've not tried meditation. I mean, meditation, what's great about meditation is mindfulness is awesome. So I mean, props to you for that, of course, but meditation is great because it's like a little mini vacation, and you can do it in 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever time you have. It's been so helpful for me. I want to reference a particular guided meditation resource that has been invaluable to me. A woman named Bella Ruth Naparstek. She has a company called Health Journeys, and there's a series of guided meditations she does, and they go from anywhere from like 12 minutes to an hour, I think, and they all have different themes. So depending on what you're feeling, or she has some for for work. She has some for forgiveness. She has some for anger. She has some for fear. She has all these different guided meditations, and her voice is just so smooth. It just feels like vacation. Her voice sounds like what I would imagine rum sounds like. If rum could sound like something.
Wow.
It's just like this really soothing, just like feels like vacation. Like, I don't know, I associate rum with vacation. I don't know what that means about me, but it's like a really, her work is amazing. Highly recommend you check out Bella Ruth Naparstek, and her company is Health Journeys, and that her name is spelled BELLERUTHNAPAS. See, I'm having a hard time reading this because it's so small. Hang on a second. NAPARSTEK. Yeah, she's awesome. Naparstek. So if you're new to meditation, she makes it really easy. She basically does all the work for you. You just put on some headphones, close your eyes for as much time as you have, and just listen to what she says, and it's awesome.
That's awesome. I have the page open. Oh wow, they have a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, they have a bunch of stuff. It's an awesome resource. Highly recommend.
Thank you. I'll definitely look into that tomorrow, because I'll definitely look into that.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for calling in. I hope you find the tiny slivers of time for yourself that you can give yourself. Sounds like you're going through a really rough time. It sounds like this was helpful for the chat to hear, and I hope it was at least good for you to just vent a little bit. And I also hope you can call back anytime, and I hope you do if you need to just do this again.
Oh, thank you. I've kept track of this podcast. I've been following you since the jellyfish video, and I haven't been back on YouTube for a while, so I'm very appreciative that you're doing this for a lot of people, including myself, just because, you're also advocating for everyone here, and you're helping everyone get through whatever they need to get through.
I appreciate you saying that. But I can't take credit for Jellyfish. That was the work of Jeffrey Dallas. That's all him.
Well, still, all your skits and all your videos, very hilarious, great comedic relief.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for calling in, and call back anytime.
And thank you.
Take
Good
care.
night.
Bye. Well, another beautiful night. Thank you guys so much for everything, for hanging in there through the shenanigans earlier while we were trying to connect with that international caller. Whoever you were, if you, again, I just want to repeat, if you can get your phone, your actual phone working with the number we have. I'm not sure why. It sounded like you were in I don't know where you were from, but it sounded like you were British, and I know this number works in Europe all over, so maybe you live outside of Europe in a really small place, I don't know, but please call back, because I would love to continue that conversation, and we'll pick right back up where we left off if you can get through. To everyone else who called in, thanks for calling and sharing. It was cathartic for me. It seems like it was for the chat. And sorry that the chat in general was just so... there was some toxicity happening in the chat, and I was unable to focus on the calls and weed that toxicity out. But I'm glad we resolved it. Thanks to Offcore for pinch hitting his mod. And you guys are awesome. And we will be doing this again on Sunday, even though it's Easter. We're going to carry in the day after Easter with one of these. So we'll start at 9 p.m. Central, and we will go until midnight. Thank you guys for all your support and for supporting these callers and just hearing them out, and for all the great ideas in the chat. You guys are amazing, and I would not want to be doing this without you guys. It feels really great. So thanks for everything, and I will see you guys Sunday. Take care.